the Education Committee meeting for October 15, 2018 to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First agenda item is something that we discussed last week, and we are set to vote on at a special meeting this evening. It's the Apex German 1, 2, 3, and 4. So is it Dr. Crane, are you presenting on enrollment numbers, or is that some member of your team?
Yes, no. We have that information for you. Erin Keating will discuss that with you. Erin?
With the exception, I could give you a curriculum council update that I met with the curriculum council this afternoon. The same motion was passed, that was passed from the Apex Committee to oppose the use of the program. The curriculum committee unanimously upheld that, as well to oppose the use of German on the platform. The information that I gave you on this sheet last Monday night at the board meeting details enrollment figures, students who request the information, cost, and the information from both the Apex Committee, and now you can add to it the Curriculum Committee Council on the motions that were made on the opposition to the program.
And the Curriculum Council meeting was today.
Today.
So you have hot off the press information.
So I have the information that they opposed it, but could you go into more detail about?
They supported what the Apex, I had given them the same information that I gave you, the same note sheet, and they had supported the motion that was upheld by the Apex Committee with the same bolded information at the end. I did, Dr. Kurian passed out a sheet to you, give you the motion that was made, the person who made it, the second, the vote, and then that they support the same comments.
So this is the only detail I have is the Apex Committee opposes utilization of Apex Cyber for German language classes in the brick and mortar schools.
And then there should be bullets on the back with their suggestions and the reasons why.
Okay, so that's the same, the curriculum committee.
Upheld the exact same information, correct. And that sheet that you have in your hands was also presented to the curriculum committee.
Okay, so do either of these committees or members of the administration have ideas for what to do if Apex is not approved?
We can continue to search for a teacher, but you're 6 weeks into a marking period at this point. So these students are sitting in a study hall. A decision has to be made as to if we're going to tell them to take another language at this point, or if we're going to continue to keep them in a study while we continue to search for a German certificated educator at this time. If we choose to put them into another language, as I put on that sheet that you were handed last week at the board meeting, there could be scheduling implications. Things aren't going to perfectly align for them to be able to go immediately into another language. You also could have staffing implications to that as well, in the form of classes are filled, so you may need additional staff to support French or Spanish if students so choose to go in that. The other thing you're going to have to realize at this point is we're 6 weeks into a marking period. In fact, grades will be due in the beginning of November. We're going to have to come up with a plan for remediation for students who will be going into another language. And we're going to have to do a cost out of what that would cost, how we're going to figure that out, because these students need the additional support. They're 6 weeks behind in course content right now.
What about like a remote class with?
We did try to do Scranton High School with a remote class. The schedules are so different at this point, it would be hard. Now, at the Curriculum Council, it was asked, could the teacher at Scranton High School be video recorded and then shown to the other students? One, that educator would have to agree to being recorded every day for a year. Two, we would have to work out technical implications of if a student had a question, how would they go about having that answered, because you wouldn't have direct instruction taking place.
So it just feels like there aren't a lot of creative ideas for how to continue.
Listen, I said it to Curriculum Council, I'm going to tell you the same thing. It's a no-win situation. Because you are going to get grieved if you vote to put this through, because you are going to be outsourcing education to another platform. At the same time, the best interest of meeting the requests of students per what they selected in the master's schedule cannot be met right now with a certificated educator. So it's to meet the students' needs and to work within the confines of the CBA, you can't win this one. I wish I had a better answer for you.
Is there any, because I'm the chair of this committee, is there anyone from either the Apex?
You had asked me to reach out to numerous people, so I had emailed the directors of IU 18 and 19 to ask if they are doing anything at this point. IU 18 didn't get directly back to me. They do have a program that they use for online learning. There are some schools that are using it. IU 19 provided me that through their online platform, they offer 5 languages through different vendors. They have Spanish, French, German, Latin, Chinese, and advanced placement Spanish language. They currently have 10 districts in the Northeast Online Learning Association, NOLA Consortium. Several of them utilize the online option as a solution for offering languages to their students. They have also successfully partnered with their local teachers' labor unions in order to bring those options to their students. So that was given to me in email form. I did not get anything that detailed from IU 18. I spoke to Celia Smith, who was our direct contact at Apex Learning. There are 3 schools in Pennsylvania who are currently using the online platform. However, all 3 of those schools are using a blended learning format where they're offering a multitude of classes, not only languages, in an online format. That has not been approved or voted on by the Curriculum Council to use Apex in that manner. So that's something from our district that would have to be there. There is one school outside of the state who went through a similar situation and was able to work out an MOU with their union to be able to offer an online language. So I did do the outreach.
Yeah. I mean, this is not something that anyone from the SFT could speak to. Are there any ideas from the SFT or other members of the Apex committee?
There are people in this room right now who would be more than willing to sit down and solve the problem. I was a language major. You need to be face-to-face with your teacher. I have the privilege of studying in this district Latin, French, and Russian. You need face-to-face communication with that foreign language teacher, because our 3rd and 4th year students should be speaking nothing but that language in that class. They shouldn't speak English at all.
I was also,
So we need to come up with a solution. We understand that. We've understood it from the get-go. We're willing to sit down and solve it. I believe there are solutions. Jennifer's.
At the curriculum council today, we, other than the option or the idea that came forth of video recording the Scranton High teacher, we also asked if the possibility of asking that teacher to teach an additional course at West High would be the options that would be available. And if you took the numbers of students that wanted to enroll in German 2 and 3-4 and combine them, you would be able to do 1 class. Our understanding of the numbers?
It would be a 7:30 a.m. class that you could look at with travel time. I don't know if they have what the first period is for Scranton High School at this point, but you need to build in the travel time as well.
And then in relation to German 1, in your discussion of having to, because you're already halfway through the first quarter, if you were to push those students into other languages and giving them a remedial course of action, you would have to do that anyway with German 1 because they wouldn't have the background. So whether you're putting them in German 1 now or you're putting them in Spanish 1 because you're halfway through, they would have to have a modified version, I would believe.
Well, with German 1, the one difference I would say there would be that all students in the class would be at the same platform. If I push kids into a multitude of Spanish 1 classes right now, those students are going to be integrating into classes that have 5 to 7 weeks of class experience under their belt. That's, Jennifer, what I was speaking to when I spoke of remediation, to catch them up to their peers in the class.
Okay.
Because that would have to be the same action. That would have to be done the exact same way you're talking about doing German. Those kids don't deserve to have to go into a class that has already been studying Spanish or French for 6 weeks. That's not fair. That's an entire quarter study over it.
Would there be a way to approve Apex to get these German students started while we spend the time to try to work out a solution that could start
Yes,
at the holiday break?
yes.
So we could potentially make a modification to the,
Well, let's write the MOU, let's write the MOU right now. What?
We don't write it, is that fast, Mr. Duffy?
I figured that.
Well, we are
but I mean,
willing,
but
we are
some,
willing to sit down and cooperate with the district under this particular circumstance, and as Mr. Gaynor will attest, what we've done in the past, with Ms. Johnson over there, we would have to indicate that this is non-precedent setting, and it is only for this one particular occasion.
so we could say something, so the resolution, as I have it, Apex for German 1 and 2, Apex running the platform for the 2018-2019 school year. Conceivably, we could say for the remainder of the 2018 school year.
I'd be glad to get that MOU tomorrow and email it up to Dr. Kieran and have her look at it and get it to all of you ASAP. And then we should be able to
We can
get the
maybe-
road line by Friday.
For the record, the concept of an MOU was not brought to me as a possibility prior to right now.
Oh, this is
So,
this is
yeah.
a live conversation.
Yeah, okay, I want that on the record.
No, 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 no,
And
no.
I like to put on the record that communication is a wonderful thing.
So, anyway, so Mr. McAndrew, you and I are education committee members that are here.
Well, I have a quick question. So first of all, these students that are sitting in studies for almost the first quarter, my grades are due in 2 weeks, so.
Well, you
Are
would,
these kids gonna get an incomplete for the first
no,
quarter?
you'd have to no grade them. You'd have
All
to
right,
give them a
so,
no grade.
I believe in multiple means, like universal design for learning. But we have to figure out a way, to address this, whether it's a hybrid, and use half Apex.
Well,
so we
I would
get up
have to
speed.
speak to, what I would have to do is speak to the platform that's gonna provide the instruction in the interim of finding a certificated teacher and say, these students have not had any direct instruction. We need to modify the instruction to meet the needs of those students being halfway through a marking period. That will be done in writing, so you know it's documented.
Sure, okay.
Okay, so with the, everyone sitting here, Mr. McAndrew and I, specifically on education, should we table the special meeting, have a,
Can we do an amendment and
Work
just, or no? We have to wait, you required MOU?
Just a suggestion, why don't you give these people enough time to sit down to talk it out, hammer out what we need to do, give it till, what, Friday you said?
You could table it until tomorrow at 3 o'clock if you'd like. And then we'll run it, I'm sure Dr. Kieran, you'd be willing to call them and get a vote at 3 o'clock once we got you the MOU.
I would if they are amendable to that.
Right.
So what Ms. Golan is asking is that I do a poll by calling each of you.
If we provide Dr. with the MOU tomorrow.
I'm fine with that.
For her review and then she gets.
So that, is that to accept the MOU? That's to accept the MOU. Is that okay, Mr. Monroe? We can do it that way, or?
I think, listen, you have these emergencies all the time. You hire teachers and you don't
And then we
approve
vote
them
on
until
it.
the next month.
A
A pipe breaks, you hire a plumber, electric breaks, and this is no different than that.
Okay,
More
Okay?
important than that, I think.
Yeah, it's a lot more.
You have to take care of what you have to take care of first.
okay.
And then, of course, you will have to approve it at some point subsequent.
So here's another line I'm thinking, what if we were to move ahead with the meeting and approve a contingent upon?
You can do that, the thought crossed my mind, you can approve a contingent, upon, if it doesn't go into effect, if we can get this MOU.
Unless it's mutually agreed upon.
Mhm.
Still a friendly amendment.
Whatever you guys want me to
let's
do.
do,
John, could
Yeah.
you,
Okay, will
could you possibly alter the,
If I could see the resolution sheet. I have the policy, but I don't.
okay, so we'll move forward with the special meeting to vote it through, that way we can have the superintendent pull us on something we've already publicly voted on.
Of course.
Sound okay?
You good?
Thank you.
Thank
So the next agenda item is grading. I think that's not one I had on there, so.
We have grading and transcripts. So we have Mr. Genalezza and Megan Barrett, there she is. So I believe Megan can start the conversation. She's prepared to discuss that with you.
Wanted to do the school profile for your review, as well as the school and
Megan, are we going to have Connie Cup zoom in?
we can,
Yeah.
with that, if we would like, she is on the phone.
Okay.
Can I interrupt for 1 minute? There's, the speaker sign-in sheet is missing. There's two. Did anyone pick it up by mistake?
How about Bert? Did you pick it up? You were over that way. Thank you, Megan.
Oh, wait, did I? Because I had all my notes there, so I might be culprit in all this.
Yeah, I'll need that.
I have it. It's my fault.
Kevin, we're like in church. There's seats up front. Right up front.
If you sit in front of
Only the sinners sit up there.
All right, so who's going to,
But she's in charge.
we might be able
Until the SST and SFT sign in, right? Until.
Bring it over, grab a trouble from there, right? I tried to print it. Even that's not very Power.
Yes, I can. I'll work the lights.
Oh, sorry, it's so dark.
I'll turn them back on.
Good evening, everybody. I have a transcript on the PowerPoint. That is from our eSchool system. Previously, prior to us changing transcripts this year, they were displayed in a way that didn't make sense. I've met with a couple of parents over the last few weeks, and can you shut the lights off, Aaron, so I can show them? Full screen, I'm sorry, Google Docs I'm not good at, PowerPoint I am. So,
Top right.
top right,
Present.
right here,
there.
got it,
There you go.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Transcripts and GPA. Okay, so right here is a system view of our GPA. That's for one single student. The transcript that you have in front of you is for this said student. This is an unweighted report card run. That's previously what was shown on our transcripts over the years that this student has been with the district since 15, 16. There's several calculations behind the scenes for each student. We have 233 seniors in the class this year at West Scranton High School. At Scranton High, I believe it's more close to 400. This is what the view was in the system, and that's for the set student that I gave you. Was the transcript before, which shows the unweighted GPA by marking period. If you look at each year, you can see that there's a final grade on each of those years. The final grade was not being included in the unweighted GPA. It was just the marking period, so 4 marking periods. To get a final grade, you take the 4 marking periods, double that, and add the final exam, which gives you the final grade. So it was not accurate in showing that it was the true final grade at the end of the year. It was showing marking period. We've since changed that to be a little bit more accurate with showing the yearly unweighted GPA. We've always shown the yearly weighted GPA, which is based off of rank. But as you can see on the bottom, sorry, it's not so clear. We've changed the wording and we've added the GPA in each year so that parents can see, which includes the final. On the top is the system weights. Does this make sense?
First, it's hard to see. That's the first thing. So if we put the lights on and you guide them through the page that they're holding,
Okay,
that
let's go
might
back to
help
the
them a little
page.
bit.
Let's go back to the page that you're holding, which is the transcript showing the marking period. So you should see on the transcript of the student, the final grade in each of the courses. The bottom shows the cumulative unweighted GPA, which since the system has been incepted in 2007, 2006, that's what was used in the transcript. We've changed the view to include yearly, weighted and unweighted, which is more true to a student's academic record. It was not including the final exam, it was just using marking periods.
So the bottom piece satisfies the students' concern with their transcripts going to potential colleges. So this is.
For the weighted and unweighted, yes. Every college that I've researched, they use the unweighted grade going in, and then they strip it, if it is weighted, of the weight, because we're not consistent district-wide, or, I'm sorry, in the state of Pennsylvania as far as weights. So we have a 5 and an 8%. Dunmore has maybe a 3 and a 5. Abington has 5 across the board for honors and AP. And we have a 5 and an 8% for honors and AP. So they really look at the unweighted grade.
So the difference in the unweighted now is that when you say final, the final exam was done.
Correct.
And now it will be.
Yes.
So that there's incentive to do well in time.
Yes. And there is a policy, I believe if they have the option to opt out of the exam, and what they are to do at the teacher level is to average the 4 marking periods and use that as an exam grade. So they do have incentive.
They can opt. What's the opt out of an exam?
There is a policy
Yeah.
that,
Missy? Yes? Would you please discuss the opt-out final exam policy that was passed by the board?
We do have a final exam exemption policy. I do not have it here with me, but I can go and get it. I did not bring that with me.
What's the gist of it?
If they attain a certain grade point average, and there's other requirements, attendance, behavior, grades, I believe those, but again, that's off the top of my head. If they attain the goals that we set, they do not have to take the final exam.
Is that for all grades 1 through 12?
That is for all grades, yes.
Okay, so I'm sorry, what happens if you waive an exam? What happens?
so the procedure should be that the teacher averages the 4 marking periods.
Miss, do you
And
want to
use
go
that as
get
the
that,
exam
please?
grade.
Sure.
Okay. So Is that an issue with college entrance? Is that something that?
I don't believe so. In this instance, the transcript that you have in front of you, the student went up in rank and up in cumulative weighted GPA, or unweighted as well.
If I could just, it's not that a zero is factored in, or if each quarter grade is doubled, that's 8 marks, then you throw in a final, which is 9 divided by 9. So if a student opts out, let's say their average is 97 across over the 4 quarters. So then the 97 gets put in for the final exam, so they still have their 9 grades, so it's not, no, it will not affect it. And if they've been doing that well, that they're able to opt out, then it's gonna help.
So there is a final, so you're actually, what's used as the final is your grade GPA over 4 quarters?
Yes, yes, and if it's very good, it's gonna help the student because they'll, then they'll risk of getting maybe an 82. It's their bonus, it's their reward.
Fair enough.
So this is now, I'm confident this is now,
I was always confident that the GPA has been correct because there were several calculations behind the scenes. It's what was displayed in the perception of what the parent thought they were calculating in the GPA. So yes, I'm confident.
So the piece that was added is this piece here.
The unweighted and the weighted GPA.
Both of those.
Right.
so
And we've always shown those.
We could take 4 options of calculating a student's GPA, 4 options, and they're all correct mathematically. We could take the option of weighted, unweighted, going by the report card, and if the student's a current senior, you'll have 12 report cards. Or we could have taken the option of yearly, weighted or unweighted. We have 4 options. Up until this point, we have taken the option of unweighted with report cards. That is what I was saying last week, is the discrepancy. It's not that it's wrong. There's no mathematical formulas or we were just opting to take that one of the 4 routes, which we are going to change, that will be more reflective to the students' grades, including the finals.
So if I understand correctly, the reason we went with the unweighted was due to the fact that when it gets looked at by a college, that's what they're looking at anyway.
I called a number of colleges myself this week, and then all admission officers said it's really up to you, however you feel as though will best the student. Now, they did say that they are going with our college profile that's sent by the school. They said because they have their own stripped down system, they'll strip down the grade without any extra added weight, and then they will make their own in-house calculations because School X might have a different percentage tacked on for honors and AP than School Y, than School Z. We have 5% honors, 8% AP. Other school districts may not carry that much weight. It's like a common even barometer that the college admission officers are doing. It's like the SA2. I always give an example. It could be, you could be taking physics at School Y and School X, and one might be a little bit more demand and rigor than the other, and one student might be getting 99, and one student might be getting an 82 in a more difficult course. But what's the common barometer? The SAT. It's similar to this. They will strip it with our college profile, strip down, and they will decide their number system. They didn't say it, well, it doesn't matter, but they said whatever you feel is the best student, we eventually strip it down.
Okay,
So we've had, so the GPA is gonna be on there weighted, unweighted, but the actual course lineup each year is unweighted. Our counselors are advocating for us to keep it that way. We've had numerous counselors discussions. They're opting to keep it that way because of that reason. Now, the junior report card, well, report cards last year, this year's seniors, last year current juniors, we reflected weighted grades for the first time ever. So that means now a student, you get on a report card 101, 102, 103. And then their average on the report card is based off the weighted grade. But on the transcript, it's the unweighted
Which will
grade.
show on the bottom.
So that's why a lot of parents are concerned about the junior year. It's the junior, that's all we keep on hearing, the junior year, because we decided last year to shift and leave weighted grades on the report card effective last year, on the report card. But not on that lineup, grade 9, 10, and 11. We've done that forever.
I understand, so the concerns that were presented to us have been satisfied, which is great. The college is gonna figure it out their own way, they break out the math their own way. The counselors should be in better in touch with the college universities, what the expectations are, whether it's weighted or unweighted. So how does this information get to the parents now? It got to us, which is great, thank you.
Wednesday night we're having a meeting.
Wednesday
Oh,
night,
beautiful, so,
Wednesday night, 6 o'clock at West and 7 o'clock at Scranton. See you there.
Mr. McAndrew, Ms. Cognetti. So the concerns mainly come from our parents and our students. I would like to Megan to speak to, for you, whether or not you believe we should submit each weighted grade. Now, we feel as a team, and based on what the counselors are telling us and what we're hearing from the college entrance advisors, that what we're doing is fine. But we understand that parents want to see those weighted grades on the transcripts. Now, I'd like to know if the board decided to do that, or to have us do that, what does that entail for us working with eSchool and PowerSchool? And how, is there a price tag attached to doing that? And-
So there is a custom template that would need to be purchased, which is comparable as a template. We've done that with elementary report cards. We have a hybrid model. So we can show the final unweighted and the final weighted if we so choose on the transcript.
Now, for the report cards, we changed that last year because parents had questions and we were showing the unweighted. So Megan worked with eSchool and PowerSchool to try to show both the weighted and unweighted on the report card.
Right, so they.
Now, we're talking about the transcript and it only shows the cumulative grade point average weighted and unweighted. But I believe many parents are concerned because when they see the transcript, they do not see that weighted grade next to every course. That's what I believe, when the students see it and parents see it, that's what kind of makes them think it's incorrect.
And then there's-
With all due respect,
Yes,
Dr. Kirian,
sure.
if I may, I'm Mary Dunleavy.
Yes,
I'm one of
Mary.
the parents that you're speaking of. Here's the problem. The freshman and sophomore year of my daughter's year were the weighted grades because the teachers did the weights. Yes, the teachers were responsible for putting the weights in the grades. So on my daughter's transcripts, which I have kept every single one of them, her freshman and her sophomore year grades are the weighted grades. So what the parents became upset about is this year, or last year, the junior year, as everybody keeps referring to, were the unweighted grades. So it appears on the transcript that all of these children, their grades dropped significantly. You're talking about their junior and their senior year. You're talking about preparation for college. This is what the parents became upset about. And from what I was told, there's absolutely nothing we can do about the freshman and sophomore year because we have no idea what the weight the teachers put in. It was arbitrary, it was at will, it was whatever. I get that, okay? But you have to have some remedy for at least the junior year of last year and all of our seniors this year that do not show that these kids dropped in grade. And that's what the parents are upset about, okay? Grading is supposed to be a very basic part of the education system of the Scranton School District. Last year, I was down here, I met with Mr. Geneleza and Mr. Brazil about the grades when the grading system was changed because nobody could figure out how that was. And I was handed a calculation. And so for the rest of the year, and including this year, I'm hand calculating my daughter's grades as a double check. I don't think that we as parents should be doing that. It should be a given. It should be basic. And so should transcripts. With all due respect, this is basic. You would think a school district with students that are at the top of their game here, that did everything that all of their teachers have asked them to do, and excelled in every one of it, you would think the Scranton School District would want to showcase these kids, not bring them down. Okay? So looking at this transcript, and I happen to have 4 of them, because the other problem here is every time they run a transcript, I get a different number. Okay? So this is the other problem. My daughter's applications to college should have been in already. You're looking at, if you don't already recognize this, a type A mom. So the deadline is November 1st. I wanted them in October 1st. However, every time I ask for transcripts, I get a different number on her transcripts. It's unconscionable. It's unconscionable. Okay? Now you're messing with their futures. Okay? We cannot do this. We cannot do this. We have to get our act together. And we have to straighten this out. And I would like to see this straightened out ASAP. So everything that you said can go forward starting from last year's freshmen. And then that transcript will be perfect. But for the juniors last year and the seniors this year, that's not what the transcript shows. And I'm sorry. All I'm thinking is now it appears on the transcript that their grades have dropped. And that's important. Okay? So some remedy has to be made on that. There has to be an explanation in the transcript.
Make that adjustment
Yes.
based on the email she sent to me.
Right.
Well, if you have the template, it should be,
We need to.
We have to get,
okay,
we
we got
have
the
to
template.
build
we
a
fixed it,
template.
fixed it.
But I think that would probably
Take
be
care
a
of
better
the years
solution.
you're talking
Yeah.
Are
about.
we gonna be able to meet that by that time?
Again,
Yeah.
applications are due November 1st.
Right.
So we have to come up with something. And that's the latest that these kids should be. There should have been applications in already. The problem is I can't rely on the transcript, or else they would have been in. And I'm not the only parent here that would say that.
So in terms of your daughter, I believe if we show the weighted final grade, you will have what you need without you seeing any of the drop in junior year. So from 15, 16 to.
Whatever you put on there. What was explained to me recently was there would be an explanation in the transcript explaining the drop.
Is writing a letter, yes.
That has to be included in the
Yeah,
transcript.
we formulated a letter that there was a change in the grading calculation for the junior year.
They won't read the letter?
So, yeah, I would say it would need to be something that could be on the.
They're gonna
physical
entertain, I mean, they
transcript.
will entertain the letter, they will read
The
the letter.
solution seems to
They will
be
read the
that we
letter.
need the weighted grade onto the junior year. Can we get the
So
weighted?
the
Until,
But they're saying.
here's, okay, so here's the problem. You have 2 years. I understand the new grading system, and that would be fine for last year's incoming freshmen. Then they're gonna have 4 years where their transcripts are consistent. For every class, for the seniors last year, God help them, and for the juniors and seniors for the juniors last year and seniors this year, until this catches up, this new system that these kids, the transcripts are ridiculous. They're ridiculous. So it shows a big drop in their grades because we have weighted grades, and now we have, for their junior and senior year, we have unweighted grades. That's a problem.
But 9th and 10th were weighted by the teacher.
Correct.
Not by the overall.
Not by the overall, so those
And
scores cannot be touched.
right now, it's the system doing it for last year. That's what-
Last
that's
year, the
difference.
system did it.
Last year it was the system, grade 9 and 10 was the teacher curve that went.
Well,
Mr. Case.
that's what I'm saying. We should report the weighted grade.
If they're gonna strip it down anyway, just report the weighted grade.
And what your percentages are, honestly, but
Yeah.
that's the only way to get around
So
this.
we can do that right away. We can show the weighted grade, 15, 16 on.
I'll give you a perfect for instance. In that junior year, on that transcript that's up there, that AP US history grade looks like an 89, I think. On the report card that went home at the end of the year, it was probably 95.
With the weighted grades.
With the
Because
weighted.
it's
The
weighted.
report cards show the weighted grades.
But can we do this with the current seniors, like Ms. Dunleavy said, can we keep it consistent with last year's freshmen on what we're doing now?
we can show the
Because
weighted
we-
grades. For any student that's not in a weighted course, it would not affect them. It would just show those students that are in weighted courses.
Right. I would recommend that if we can do that, we should do that if the board is in favor of us doing that. Because then we would satisfy the issue that the parents and students are feeling right now.
Right.
And,
all you need is run the numbers through the template.
Yeah.
That's, yes,
Instead of
absolutely.
running unweighted, you're unweighted.
Right.
I get
And
it.
then if they're in a course that's not weighted, it's a regular course, it wouldn't affect it anyway.
It doesn't get
For
weighted.
that junior year.
But I mean, you could run it now for everything.
It'll go back
Moving
to
forward.
It should just, this, again, my question is, should it just be for this current class? Because right now,
This is
like you
their
said,
transcript.
for the current senior class, because
But it would have to be, it would have to be fixed for last year.
Last year,
Yeah.
no, I know, but last year's freshmen who are this year's sophomores, like you said, they're on track to have.
The freshmen are on track to
They're
have,
on track, so.
The freshmen don't have
application deadlines in 15 days.
correct,
Yeah,
We have to do it with the class now, but not the current.
Right, template.
If I could speak real quick, I spoke to the University of Scranton, Kelly Lewis, who is the admissions, the head of admissions there, Ian Schreffler from Wilkes University, and Tom Landon from King's this afternoon. And I asked what they would prefer. Would you prefer weighted transcripts, or would you prefer unweighted? And they said, well, why would you, I mean, we want to give the highest benefit to the kids, the highest benefit we can. Why wouldn't you, as a district, and I didn't say I'm a district, I'm calling from me, Robert Butka, and I said I'm calling as a son that's going into college, why wouldn't you then have transcripts that show them to give them the greatest benefit? Because we get them from other school districts across the country that say, here are the transcripts, it's weighted, which you're going to have in a competitive engineering program like my son, a 93 in chemistry for chemical engineering, where really it was 100 on the report card with the weight. So why shouldn't it show on the transcripts 100? Because that's what he had. I don't care about the report cards.
Rob, we did talk to some of the college's admission officers, and we did do that. And they said you can send them any way you want to. And I'm agreeing with the parents and the students that they want to show their best. But when the college receives them, they will strip them down and use their own formula, because everybody who applies to a college has a different weighting system. So they have their own way of stripping down the transcripts to make it an even playing field for everyone. But I understand what our parents and students are feeling as what is first presented. They want it to be presented in the best light we can present our
Correct,
students.
understandable.
And why wouldn't we?
Yeah, one more thing that I just want to mention. Today, the 15th, from Monday, or sorry, 10/10, which is Thursday, I believe, till today, my son dropped one place in the college, in his high school rank, because now we're counting final exams that weren't previously counted for how many ever years. So it's like you just said, it's changing on a daily basis. We need to be consistent. And again, I'm speaking as a dad here, I'm not speaking as I'm as a dad, father, taxpayer, frustrated father.
So now, did you want to get East School on the line, Ms.
Well, I think we
Pepney?
need to wrap this up a little bit. So first, I want to just understand, please, from Mrs. Dunleavy, are you hoping to see just the weighted, or both unweighted and weighted?
I think
Since day one.
here's the problem. They've been weighted. Freshman and sophomore year are weighted, and nothing can be done about that. So I think junior and senior should be weighted.
For
Let
these-
the colleges strip them down if the colleges want to strip them down, but they should be weighted. They should be weighted grades to keep the transcript consistent. Some college, let's be honest, how many applications are they getting? 40, 50,000 applications? I don't know about you, but I'm going to be eyeballing a transcript. I'm going to see 105, 105, and then I'm going to see 93 in the junior and senior year. Are you kidding? That's a no-brainer.
No, I'm not, clearly, there were weights there was a lot of objectivity in terms of grades that your daughter and others had in freshman, senior years, and freshman, sophomore years, then obviously we've got to make sure that is consistent. But I just wanted to know, so it's weighted grades with the rank that is.
That would be the best light that you can shine on these kids, and I think they deserve it.
So, with that, Mr. Case, you wanted to weigh in.
Okay, so this is water over the dam at this point, but, prior to the year before last, teachers, it wasn't an arbitrary, as far as I knew, like, every teacher I knew, there was a specific formula for honors curve and for AP curve that the teachers used and entered that grade in, and that's the way it was. A committee had been formed, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, Mr. Mazzino was here. We needed a committee to look at this specific issue. We're separate from any curriculum committee, was to look at our grading system. Because some people thought we should have a double curve. There were some reports of other schools having a double curve. We want to be able to compete with those other schools, you know, and so forth. But as we investigated, we found that well, some of those claims were not true. There wasn't a double curve in some of these other high schools. And so there were some people who said, let's not curve it at all. Let them earn what they earn and let the colleges figure that out. And there were some that said, we need the double curve, you know. The committees expanded. There were guidance counselors, there were AP teachers, there were honors teachers, there were others, administrators, all on this. We met in the library, we met in various rooms, we had different groups that broke up and came together. And in the end, we said, let's leave it alone. It's working perfectly fine the way it is. Let's leave it alone. Now, that was, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. Then something else happened. And here we are.
If I can, teachers still can curve grades on individual grades for tests, quizzes, whatever. Then at the end of the marking period, with all those grades, whatever the teacher decided to do is fine. And that final grade, whatever the teacher came up with, is entered into the system. The system weights the grade. That's
what's happening in the
what's
system.
happening now. The
Prior to
system
that-
does it.
Can I ask what a student with a 92 gets with the weight?
So
Can you tell me what that-
5%.
It's 5%.
If it's an honors
Yeah.
class.
Honors.
8% if
And
it's
it's
8.
8% on 9, of 9,
But the
That's
teacher at the end, Kevin,
and it's
doesn't
8%
have
across
to
no
do
matter
that.
what grade you get.
No matter what school, that's Scranton High or West Side.
I mean, I'm saying,
Yes.
no matter what the
No
grade
matter
is.
what the grade is,
Yeah.
yes.
So I want to address something else that has come up a couple times. The pulling transcripts and having them look different on different dates. So that has been called to my attention too. So I have an example of a student transcript, I have no idea who it is, where it was pulled in December 2017, then again in March and again in July, and then with the same set of grades, the AP Bio, AP History, and a few other classes, the grade actually shifted during that time and the GPAs shifted. So to Mr. Bucka's point as well, like the ranks, things seem to be changing very quickly. How can we ensure that we are
Can
pulling?
you give me those months again?
Yeah, so December 2017, then March 2018.
It's
and then July.
recalculated after every quarter.
After every marking
Every
period.
quarter, it does get.
Prior to this year, it was a marking period GPA that was listed on the transcript.
And doesn't that go off of how many, what teachers put their grades in early for particular tests and things? Or it's not that
It's
accurate?
every quarter.
It's every quarter. That's how it's being calculated by each quarter, recalculations.
Okay, so
So that's
So
correct.
that's not
It is
an
going to be
issue.
effective. No, it's going to be effective after December. That was after quarter 1. In March, it was after quarter 2.
okay, but we're not concerned that we're gonna pull
That won't be
transcripts
happening
for November
this year.
1st application. That's
We
kind of-
can show the marking period for, we can show that along with the years.
Well, not year to date, just, there isn't an inconsistency with the program in that way. It's not shifting over behind the scenes.
No.
Okay, that was the concern of the person that I heard from, so. Okay, so from this,
I'm a parent, I'm on
Yeah.
the list also, because I was also at that meeting with Mary and Mr. Gentilez. My concern as a parent is, and you know, we've had how many discussions last year? I think it was Chloe's first, my daughter's in 10th grade this year, her first quarter report card. She was 4 times, 4 refigures to get that report card right.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Going forward next quarter, same thing again, comes
This was
home.
last year.
Last year,
Yeah.
not correct.
Right.
We had a meeting with Mr. Gentilez, I was with Mary, in all due respect to him, he couldn't sit in front of me and come up with a calculation to show me that her grade was correct. So if you can't do that, how am I don't trust that her report card
You don't
this
trust the
quarter
system. Right.
is going to be right. But it's so confusing that I have calculations in an Excel spreadsheet, I'm still not coming up to what you are. So I'm not comfortable that these report cards coming home are the correct grades, which is ridiculous. I shouldn't have to calculate my daughter's report card every quarter to make sure that the grades are correct. It should come home, and in confidence of the district, I should be comfortable that it's correct, and I am not. How about a spreadsheet for the parents or something saying in plain English, this is how I came up with this grade, how I came up with this average. There's 3 different averages on the report card. Again, I try and get it right, and I can't as a parent. And I don't trust that they're
I
right.
could post the quality points for each of the grades online. And if we show the weighted grades like we are with report cards and we show the weighted transcripts, I think it will be easier for you to understand. Because I met with a parent and only until I printed out a log from the system did she really say, oh, okay, because the system rounds numbers, so you're gonna lose some quality points. So I can do that.
Right, but I would like a chart as a parent, and it's sad that I even have to ask for this, that I had to have 4 report cards come home in a quarter to
Right.
get it correct.
Right.
And the first quarter's the easiest, and she was a freshman, so it was plain as day, not correct. We had that discussion.
We did, and there's a procedure at the building, there's grade changes that have to be followed up. If there is a grade change, there's an issue. The first line of defense is the guidance counselor. I will sit with the guidance counselor and sit with you so that we can understand, because they don't know how. We've met with them over the last 2 weeks, and they're really struggling with trying to figure that out. But each student has a GPA summary in the system, which will explain it much more.
Yeah, I would like to see something for parents, plain as day. Someone from year to year that can figure out when my report card comes home, I want to be able to figure her grades out and make sure that that average, because if her average isn't right, then how, everything you're saying about this transcript doesn't matter, because the average isn't even right from the get-go.
Megan, how about, because I think I understand what she's saying. So it seemed to me I should be able to take, if I'm an AP English student, I should be able to take my scores on my report card and come up with an average.
Yes.
Now, if the system is not using the numbers I'm using, we're not going to get the same.
We're not gonna be on the same
Right.
page, right.
So I think what the parents need, what everybody needs, is a little bit of help knowing the system. What is the formula the system is using to calculate that? Is the system rounding to the hundredths place or the tenths place? What are they rounding the number to? So is the average 92.75, and is that 93? Or is 92.75 a 92? The parents have to know that.
Right.
Because, so on a plain sheet of paper, that's easy to calculate, so anybody can, with a calculator maybe for some, but for most of us, that's easy to do. You have $92.75, you're close to 93 bucks. So most people get that. But I don't think anybody should be getting a report card home, and not say, how did my kid go from a 99 to an 85? Because it's not weighted anymore. So I think what we need to do is apply a grade, apply 8 to it, so that the person understands this is what my kid gets. If my kid has a 92 and is AP, they're gonna have 100.
That's what's displayed.
Right.
And I understand what I can get to the weighting. That, I don't have a problem with.
But I think it's
all
not
the
out there
grades,
enough.
And now let's figure it out for the average. That's where my problem is coming from.
You need to work with current.
I think just put it on there.
And then my next problem is, why was it wrong in the first place? Again, that's what concerns me. Why are these grades coming home incorrect? And if they're not questioned, would it have gone on? Do you know what I mean? It's concerning to me. These kids work hard for these grades.
I can speak to that, because last year we changed the template. Committee met, we had honors and AP grades that we decided to show on the report card. So the template needed to be set up. If there was an issue with the level table of being displayed, that's hand typed in. There was clerical errors, there were some issues where it was never a question of GPA. I'm 100% confident that that is correct. From 15, 16 on, we've dug deep and made sure that all of the schedules, the courses, and marks have been calculated thoroughly. It was a question of the display of the report card, definitely.
Okay, well, then I guess my request would be, as a parent and
Yeah.
a taxpayer, I want some kind of template, so when her report card comes home the end of this quarter, I want to make sure
That it's correct.
that last year and this year and going forward, that those grades average out for all her averages, cumulative marking period, that they are correct. That's my request as a parent.
And with all, with all I'm nervous about, we're talking about parents whose kids are in honors and AP, right? What about the parents who are not here, whose students are getting maybe a 68 instead of a 72? Right, because it was miscalculated.
And
here's the thing. That was a
There
hammer
was
for
no,
graduation.
I want to clarify, there was no miscalculation. There was always the question of GPA behind the scenes being calculated correctly. It's calculated several ways, it's what was displayed. It's
I know,
how
but
it
if data was
displayed.
entered incorrectly, as you just said, we're gonna.
If
so
there was, if
We've
there
got to
was,
teach our students then to start to pay strict attention to that, because if it means I graduate on time, or I'm sitting back in the classroom for a summer, because something was done not correctly, the kid has to know how to do that. I think we owe that to every student in this town,
Absolutely.
not just our AP kids, not just our honors kids, but we owe it to those kids who, a 70 means I'm graduating on time with a diploma. And I think it's imperative right now, from everything I'm listening to in this room, as a teacher, that my students know how to do their average, and that's what their average was. This is not something that should be so complicated.
I agree,
It
100%.
should not
So
be, Mary, you know,
I know, and here's the part of the other complaint that Tina and I had last year was, this grading system was changed. Not one parent was notified, not one. It was a surprise, it was a shock, and then 4 report cards later, as we're sitting down one night, we get to figure it out. But again, it's 3 or 4 of us in a room. What about the other 10,000 kids that are in the Scranton School District whose parents don't understand what's going on? Communication is number one. If somebody's gonna change something with regards to grades, transcripts, anything with regards to, there should be something. There's enough mediums, there's everything to let us know what's going on. We're the parents. We need to know what's going on with our kids and their grades and their transcripts. So, yeah, I said that last year. Everybody should know this, not just the 4 of us that were sitting in the room. And that's just fair.
Okay, so
I did send a letter last week,
Okay, so I've,
and it was posted.
just to clarify, I know we've been around this and back. So when we go tomorrow, not saying we should. When we go in tomorrow, we're going to figure out a way to make this consistent for the individuals that are seniors this year, so that their transcripts and report cards are shown as the same as when they first got a report card to where they are now. And we're going to fix the last year's and the first quarter of this year so that everything is accurate and consistent from day one.
If we run through this weighted, all 3
Yeah.
years should be consistent.
Yes.
The template's the key.
Along with report cards.
The
Yeah.
template's the key, you gotta
Template's
prove the
key.
template, you just run the numbers through and then they correct
It
themselves.
shows exactly what it shows.
What we're looking
And
for.
from this point forward, we're gonna show the weighted grade.
Right.
Yes. I have a quick question, so.
Going forward, that will solve the problem, as long as we continue to show we have a problem now that exists with current students, but as for the problem to not recur, the weighted grade is the key.
Right.
The template will be a constant, the template is what's key, it'll be a constant. But I have a quick question with regard to the parents. So, there's a portal for them to go in and look at their children's grades, right? So what is their actual view? Like, I use a grade book, but it's totally different than ours is with the CSIU.
I think it's, yeah, you.
But I wake them, I go in, I do all that work, and I think the view, and there's a way to add notes. I can say your final grades included. There's a lot of options for me to actually, provide more information to the parent when I populate them grades. Saying, okay, his grade is down because of that, he missed 3 days, he violated my policy. So I think, and how it's weighted is, I think the view is better for the parents, the program we use, than what's being in place now. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there, but
That is online. and
I never have a
that
problem
needs to
with
be aligned.
concerns about parents like questioning why the grades change or not, because I have a way to like add comments, or not even pre-populated stuff, but explain to the parent better why this is happening. Why Johnny got this grade that was this quarter versus last quarter.
There's comments, they could speak, there's free.
And I waited, like, we
Yeah.
waited, and then the finals in, and like, I don't know, I think, like, my kids are out of school now, so I don't have the view as a parent to see what actually takes, what the parents currently are seeing when they
So
look
what
at
they
the
see
grades.
is the weighted grades
No.
online. So that would be consistent with what we wanted to see.
Last year, we saw raw scores. And then,
Yes.
and then we would
Weighted
hand
average.
calculate them. And then when the report card came home, I would match the scores together to make sure. So what I saw in eSchool last year was the raw score. And then I would do the calculations by the paper that was given to me last year at our meeting and figure out so that when the report card came home, then I would check and make sure that we were close. And that's how it went. But Tina's right. First and second quarter of last year, 4 different report cards before we got it right. Going forward after that meeting, on eSchool, we got the raw scores, and then we were able to do the math to get close to the GPA.
Yeah, and I have a spreadsheet. I can get close, I still cannot get exact, even after our meeting and our explanation.
But we get the raw scores, no comments, no, just great, just course, raw score. And that's what shows up on eSchool, for my child anyway.
Okay, so I think what we're looking for with the transcript, and please correct me if I'm wrong, and this needs to happen immediately for people who are applying to schools in the next couple of weeks. So we need a transcript to make sure it has weighted grades and rank, and a note on the transcript about the change. A letter, wonderful also, but a note on the transcript so that the admissions officer sees the actual transcript and would see that note instead of just throw away the piece of paper.
If you're, I'm sorry to interrupt
No,
you,
please.
but if you're putting the weighted grades on, there's no note
Should be
needed.
consistent.
Because it should be consistent from their freshman and sophomore
But
year.
we'll still send the profile, the
You
school
can, yeah, right, the
profile.
profile, but you don't need to send any letter if you choose to put all the weighted grades on, because that would be consistent. Right now, it's inconsistent because you have 2 years of weighted grades and 2 years of unweighted grades.
It's showing a huge drop.
That's right.
Or
Right.
whatever. with-
But if you decide tonight to put all weighted grades on the transcripts,
Right, so-
then that would clear up the problem and no additional wording.
What about the kids who already submitted transcripts, before October 1?
I hope they
We're
did.
still waiting.
No, I'm serious, I mean.
No, I hope
We're
they
literally
did it,
Still waiting
Mr.
for the
McCameron.
transcripts to send out to
Oh, so you,
apply.
okay, so,
So
the application process, you just let.
I'm on hold right now.
Right.
Can you contact
Yes, I can
our
do that.
school tomorrow and tell them this is top priority for Scranton?
Yes.
And I think another point that needs to be brought up is most of these students apply for scholarships. I know the union gives scholarships in both high schools every year, the district gives scholarships, universities give scholarships, like $8 million, $9 million in Scranton Heights. It's nothing in scholarship money. Those scholarships are awarded based on those transcripts. That's how we look at, we judge a full person when we award our scholarship, and that transcript is heavy in the weighting process. So I hope everything gets done quickly so that, I know for us, when we send our applications out, we want them back and we want to be able to award scholarships.
I can change that to weighted quickly.
Can we get these parents a timeline on when they should expect the transcript so they're ready to go when they get them?
By the end of the week. By the end of the week, I can have the weighted grades being shown, and then we'll have consistency across the board, okay?
Yep. I'll check first thing Monday. I want these applications in.
All right, we got it, I think.
I want a
Thank you very much,
scholarship.
Megan. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the next item, PA Schools Work. PA Schools Work is actually a new organization, but it's actually formed from a few different organizations, my understanding, and the campaign for fair education funding is now rolled up into this. Since we last met, I spoke with somebody who's related to this organization. They said that instead of one meeting in Harrisburg for November 17th, they're going to start with regional meetings and build up to a statewide. I don't know when those are going to, the regionals will be. But what we wanted to discuss, that we wanted to spend time at a voting meeting discussing, was just how we wanted to staff this essentially. Certainly can send or appoint more than one person to be, more than 2 people to be the point people. When we have a regional meeting, I would think that many of us would want to go, both administration and board. So I don't know if we want to appoint like a couple specific people to be the point people, but I don't want to make this seem like this isn't a team effort on the part of everyone.
The resolution had room for two, but was that just the way that we?
That's, so
They originally asked for two, right?
they did, and then again, I talked to this person that's doing work for this organization. They said, well, to be honest, they said that that was put in there because they didn't want places like Philadelphia to send 100 people and drown out all the voices. So a district like ours that is right there in the fight for fair funding and significant but not gigantic, we should have multiple. So any thoughts on, I think we probably need to submit some names to them just so they know who to send their emails to. Dr. Curie, I assume that you would want to be one of those people or appoint someone from your team. And then, you know, I don't know, Director Dixon's not here tonight, but.
It's been, everyone knows that's been my thing since the beginning, so I'd like to be involved if that would be okay. The rest of the board.
We want to start out with four, maybe Dr. Kieran and maybe Pat Latta from the business and someone from the business office as well as two directors.
Sure.
That's what you like? So we need another director, Ms. Cudmany.
I mean, I'm happy to do it now as the education chair, and then we can shift things if we need to after reorientation.
Okay, something at the time I'd be willing to do too.
Okay.
Does that work? Yeah.
So you'd like a resolution then to appoint Dr. Curie and Paul Duffy, Pat Laffey, and Paige Cognetti?
Yeah, I think that works, and
And then for the regional meetings,
certainly,
yeah,
all of us
everyone
are
who
able
wants
to.
to attend. Okay.
Okay, and I think I was excited that they're going to do regional first, because I think that makes a lot of sense.
So my understanding is that December 17th is off.
That's my understanding. So I haven't gotten anything official on that, but that's what it's called, so.
Will we be working with our PSBA representative from Region 4, Mr. Snowden, or is he have nothing to do with this?
I haven't heard.
Good question.
I haven't heard from them.
Because he has a good connection with Senator Blake's office.
Okay. Mr. Doherty, I think you'll be speaking about the next two agenda items, the computer classes, music classes, and other things going on at the intermediate schools.
So, Dr. Kieran called me last evening and asked if I would come and speak to how we're integrating technology into the classroom on a daily basis. And I'll always take any opportunity to brag about what's going on over at West Intermediate. Technology has become such a huge part of everything we do, integrated daily into our regular curriculum. You know, as I went through the building today and I started actually trying to get a number on how many pieces of individual technology are there, I came up with, right now we have about 810 students, but we have just over 200 iPads that are in classrooms, and we have 330 Chromebooks that are available. Google Classroom has been dynamic and really has changed what's been going on over the course of the last couple of years. And we've had a great number of staff members really see the value and invest time and effort, and our students absolutely love it. Google Classroom is basically a learning management system where it houses and assigns assignments, where students can complete assignments right through the Google platform, either through a document that was created by the teacher or things that the students are self-creating, submitted through Google. We have two teachers, for instance, that are completely paperless using Google Classroom. It's a file management system. All the student documents, all their assignments, maintained inside of the Google Classroom, and they're safe. It's absolutely dynamic. We have, out of my 29 content area teachers, there's 13 that utilize it daily. So it has really become a huge part of everything that we do. With that, we've made a significant investment in getting the 500 pieces of technology into the hands of kids. IT, when Mr. Brazil was here, did a great job supplying us with the iPads, and he really taught me the value of the technology piece. So through the budget, the last couple of years, myself, and I can speak for Rob on this, we've spent significant portions of our school budget on purchasing Chromebooks. because we see the value. When you put a Chromebook into a student's hands, I mean, we all know students that in this age are so proficient with technology. You give them that vehicle as a resource, not as the learning tool. But you give them that as a resource, they're engaged, they're in, and it absolutely takes off. Like I said, Google Classroom has absolutely transformed what goes on in West Intermediate on a daily basis. We are fortunate to have 3 Chromebook labs, so if teachers don't have a cart with 30 of them in the room, we currently have 8 teachers that have 30 Chromebooks in their room, and we have 6 that have 30 iPads, and 2 that split a set of iPads. But if teachers don't have that in their room, and they're shared a lot, but if they don't have that, we have 3 Chromebook labs that they can use. Now, being that we do have a significant portion of our content area teachers that do have technology in their rooms, the labs are available constantly. For instance, today we had a social studies teacher that was in the lab with all 5 of her classes. In one of the labs, we had a 7th grade science teacher that was in a lab today with her class on the other side up on the balcony. But it's been absolutely dynamic. Some of the other things that we integrate on a daily basis, I mean, a couple things, and I'd love to brag about this one is, we've placed nationally in the C-SPAN competition 3 times in the last 5 years. That's only through integrating technology into the history curriculum, into the social studies curriculum that took place. Even through subjects you might not think it lends itself to, for instance, FCS. FCS teacher spends a great deal of time in the Chromebook lab on a site called Teach Bonsai, which teaches financial management skills, which is certainly very important. We do things like virtual field trips with the iPads. I have a science teacher that's constantly using Nearpod to go on virtual field trips, which is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. So when the students are using the iPad and they're moving and they're going up and they're going behind them, it's like you're moving to wherever site you're on. It creates instant engagement. Students are completely in. Another thing that we really, we're thrilled to have is, recently we've invested in, and again, IT helped us out, but we've been using active panels. I don't know how many people are familiar with the active panels. It's starting to replace all the community boards that are within the district. Basically, it's like giant Android device where it's a smart board. You don't need a computer hooked up to it. It's absolutely dynamic. We're fortunate that we have a number of them because we have classrooms that don't have walls. So obviously you can't put a community board on in a room where you don't have a wall.
You can cast them with your Chromebook.
What's that?
I have one, you can cast it.
Absolutely, you cast right to it from the Chromebook. Absolutely, it's absolutely, a dynamic thing that's going on. But I'm absolutely thrilled with the direction of the technology, certainly at West Intermediate. Just guidance. Guidance uses the Chromebooks multiple times a year through TA Career Zone to help students identify their interests and things they might want to be studying. So almost every subject area that we talk about, we are using that subject, supporting that subject area, supporting that teacher through the use of technology. I'm very fortunate that last year I had 6 teachers within the building come and ask if they could do differentiated supervision plan and become Google certified. So currently there's 6 Google certified educators at West Intermediate. 2 more approached me this year, so we have 2 more that are seeking that Google certification now. So the resources are available, and now we're going to have 8 Google certified educators, so that the expertise is also there. My staff, my IT person, Dean Mulhern, they've really invested in it and see the value in it, and it's absolutely, turned the building in a very positive direction as far as that.
And I spoke with Mr. Gilroy, he couldn't be here this evening. He echoed the same types of programs integrating computers into the classroom at his school. And I visited Rob's school the other day and observed Mr. Coach's class and was extremely impressed with the skills of the students using Google Classroom right in the class. There were only a few that would rather have pencil and eraser, but he's doing a great job over there. I don't know if you'd like to add anything else that you're doing with integrating computers in the classroom.
Right along the lines of what Mr. Doherty said, we we're trying to get as much technology in their hands as possible because it's interesting and it keeps them engaged. And on a side note, Jason Pica, who's the IT specialist for the district, contacted me in an email when I just requested for a new budget, more Chromebooks and a couple of the active boards. He said something about getting us to, we're almost to a one-on-one, get to a point where we one-on-one, and he has to upgrade the servers in the building so that it can handle the traffic.
Even when they're working within Google Classroom and they're, completing assignments, there's a feature called Hangouts where it allows collaboration in real time within the same documents. Like last spring, I observed an English class, and I was watching, and at first I thought the student that was sitting in front of me had a little chat conversation going on with somebody. But then I realized they were actually collaborating on a project with a student in a different English class at the same time. And the teacher was monitoring their whole assignment and then was also like going into the conversation. It actually, I think I'm catching somebody doing something.
I popped in and the teacher was sitting down at the computer like they were, and it just to pop in, walking through to see what's going on, and then pop-ups were coming. I came in and I saw it coming from one of the teachers, just a little discussion that was going on. So it is, it's awesome. But like I said, we would like to try to get more to all the teachers.
And I thought you could talk to us a little bit about what's happening in music at your school.
Sorry, should we talk quickly just
I'm sorry.
about the computer? So obviously, everything that you guys just went into is excellent. Of course, we want as many Chromebooks as we can possibly have, but what we didn't know last year, the computer classes never came up in any of our discussions. And so it'd be great to hear from you guys if it's true that there are no longer computer classes. Is that true? B, do you think that not having those desktop computer experiences is going to put our kids at a disadvantage? Because desktop is different than the Chromebooks,
Well,
right?
I'll speak to that first. We haven't had a computer class at intermediate in 3 years. The things that were being taught in that section, and were, for instance, teaching a student how to put a text box into a PowerPoint slide. That is not what students would certainly need at this point, because they're so much more proficient than the adults. If you wanted to start talking about coding, and you want to start talking about doing some other STEM things, that would be a different discussion.
Okay, but those classes weren't, the computer classes that are, from what I've been told, that are now gone, were not coding classes and not.
No, they weren't.
We're not using, we haven't lost that type of instruction.
No, I think over the course of the last 3 years, our students have become much more proficient in the use of technology, just through their own lives, but also because so much is integrated just daily in the classroom.
I have a concern there. Paul Rafferty.
Mr. Rafferty, are you the same one that's on this?
On the list?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to just save it for the public comment section?
Sure.
Yeah. I just didn't want it to turn into another
45-minute article.
Ms. McTiernan?
Yes? Can you give me some history or provide it to the board? You spoke to me about it today, about computer classes in the intermediate schools. Every intermediate school did not always have computer classes. Is that correct?
Well, it was just, there were, at different times, so, and again, I'm glad that Paul, because at one time, all 3 of us were middle school principals. So I remember, not just computers, but at different times, we had different offerings. It wasn't always the same. So, for example, in order to balance our schedule, Paul had swimming. Well, Rob and I didn't have a pool. So Rob had tech ed. I didn't have tech ed at South. So there wasn't always the same offerings, and again, when we had a discussion today, I know Paul, when German and French were offered at the middle school, and then they were moved to the high school, we basically had openings where we had to create classes with the staff that we had. It was at that time when I created what was called a classroom technology, and that was basically because I had that staff in my building. Now, and correct me if I'm wrong, at that time I had 2 computer people, Mr. Hawk and another teacher.
Mrs. Dale.
Exactly. And so I had the staff to be able to create a classroom technology class. A lot of what was being taught in that classroom technology class is what was happening in the classrooms also. So the kids were getting, they were doing presentations and, for example, in English, they do research projects, they do PowerPoint presentations, but they were also getting that in the classroom technology class. I guess my point is that there hasn't been consistency, and I think one of the things that we're trying to do, I can speak, this administration is trying to get consistency at all 3 middle schools. And with the integration of the technology and the computers in all of the classes across the curriculum, we thought this would be one area with the 6 offerings that were offered, that would be a repetitive thing. So some may disagree, but again, I was offering it in my regular ed classes, and they were also going to a classroom technology class.
One of the things that we did, well, South and Northeast did was we had it wasn't technology, it was computer class, but we did use it for remediation and reading and math.
Correct.
So they would go in there and they would log on. Half of the year was Excel, PowerPoint, the basics of it, and then half the year was to use for remediation.
Not sure if I answered your question, but there was inconsistencies, and now we are offering this, Paul again still has swimming, which Rob will never have, because he's in the pool. But,
It's on the roof.
It's on the roof.
That was one area that we felt that if needed, we could collapse that area and, because we were integrating into the classroom.
So these technology or these computer classes were not a common elective throughout the 3 intermediates. Like the complaint that we received was like, oh, they took away the computer classes.
Well, again, I don't want to speak for the other 2 because I forget, but I offered classroom technology class. I don't know if
I'm saying within the past year that it's like we eliminated all these computer classes. That's how it sounded to me.
Well, that's
why it's even on the agenda.
That's incorrect.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, ours work on Khan Academy and Excel and the Microsoft platform.
Okay.
And Paul didn't have it for 3 years. He hasn't had it in 3 years, computer class.
No, I understand what you're saying.
Right.
So I believe what we're hearing, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that we're offering more exposure to technology by integrating it into the classroom. Is that correct?
That's
Sure. I get it. Every one of my students has a Chromebook. I have two, even in the vocational world, educational world. We utilize them every day. We're actually switching from our text. We still have it, but we're going to go to online text. And the use of the Chromebooks, they log in every day. They can, instead of writing in a workbook, they can do it and send it to my computer or email it to me. And they can actually work from home. So I get it. I mean, we still have the regular hard, the text, but they're more engaged with this. They receive it better.
So what I would ask is that we get updates like this, not in October from people emailing us randomly, but if it could be as possible to have a more proactive approach to communicate to the board when things like this change.
I think the board had said that you wanted to monitor this quarterly. Do I remember that correctly? Ms. Dixon brought that up, so this is your first introduction to what's happening in this current year.
I'd like to receive information before or as if changes made, not 2 months later. That's hard. That's very hard on us.
I
Because then
don't
we
know
end up
what
getting.
changed. When we talked about the schedule for this coming year, we posted it up on the PowerPoint.
I don't remember.
It was
I just don't
there.
remember the word computer coming up. Maybe it's not Ms. Oxford at West Bath. They're inconsistent across the district, but it's really tough on us to hear everything after the fact.
It's not after the fact. I believe the staff will tell you, you've heard this several times prior to us implementing what you voted on for us to implement. I can send you the documents.
There were no changes to technology classes or access on, that I remember on.
I do remember there was a business computer class. Did West Side have a business computer?
That's what it was.
So like that.
That's the cert that I had. That Northeast has a business cert.
Yeah, and I sat through some of those, so I went in the computer class over West Side.
If I may, there was a specific slide in a PowerPoint slide where it and I only know because I was going through my materials today, where it said 3 computer teachers were cut, and it had elementary, middle, and high school. And it was a PowerPoint slide, and that's, I don't know if that's what you're referring to, but it did say that.
Okay, but 3 computer teachers getting cut doesn't imply that the actual learning is going to change, or the access to the computer lab is going to change, those types of things. So we just need more information, please, more proactively about any changes that are coming, because we hear from parents and teachers all the time, on our
I
email
know,
or on Facebook.
I get it, you'll get, as much information as I possibly could send out, but I have a big question mark over my head right now, because I'm positively, absolutely, 100% certain that this was communicated, and I'll be happy to resend how it was communicated, so that maybe it will be a memory jogger. But I do remember this specifically. So,
All right, so Mr. Doherty, the music classes, please.
I guess I'm open for questions on that one. The doctor had said to me last evening, what's going on in the music classes and how can we look at maybe reintegrating some chorus sections, some band sections, and some string sections. Obviously, that's got to be addressed through schedule. When the final decision was made last year to move ahead with, when you voted to move ahead with the cuts, it did not leave us a lot of time to schedule it accordingly. The scheduling process starts right after the first of the year. West Intermediate went from 3 music teachers down to 1, and at that point we were not sure how a music program was going to look across the board in all 3 intermediate schools. Now the 3 music teachers have been meeting on the professional development days to map out a curriculum. In just as I brainstorm, there's going to be ways to offer those subject areas. For instance, so if I look at next year's grade 7, where I know I have 10 sections of music throughout the course of a 6-day cycle. Well, we could designate certain sections as section is going to be chorus, so there's going to be 2 sections of chorus, there's going to be 4 sections of band, there's going to be 4 sections of strings. However, it's going to be it's going to be tied to our sections are so tight, numbers-wise, because I have 287 7th graders right now, or 285 7th graders. So that averages, 28.5 a section. So if we could fill 4 chorus sections and 2 string sections and 4 band sections, we could certainly offer that. Where it would become an issue is if only 14 kids wanted to take strings, because you couldn't run a section with 16 empty seats when your population is that large. That's something that we could certainly look to address through the scheduling process. I think it's doable, but I think it'd be difficult. Right now, there's more of music appreciation going on. I was back in the music room twice last week, and I got to see an awesome presentation about Bruce Springsteen, where they were listening to lyrics and breaking down meanings, and watching a piece on YouTube. And I saw the same thing at the start of the next week using a Spice Girls song. And I'll tell you what, the kids were all in. They were singing; it was funny. But, I think in grade 6, that might be perfect. Because historically, when kids were choosing band, strings, or chorus coming out of 5th grade, they were making a selection without prior experience. And I think that what that led to is halfway through grade 6, or the start of grade 7, they wanted to change. So I think, certainly what we could work towards, and our music teachers would need to be involved in this, obviously, is we got to make it, more of an exploratory program in grade 6, so we could maybe guide kids to what they're geared towards moving into grade 7 and 8.
Those are like, I remember my kid, those are like, pick an instrument.
Right.
Yeah,
Woodwinds. They don't even know what woodwind.
At Northeast, we had a few of our feeder schools. We had the most feeder schools. We had a few that had Armstrong had, I believe. I think Morris had. They had either strings in 5th grade or they worked with them. So it was a little bit easier on our part to develop a band and the strings. All of us could sing except for me. But to get that now, when we finally had the schedule handed to make something happen, it was physically, like literally physically impossible to make happen. And on top of that, looking at the shows, the chorus, the Christmas, or the holiday concert, or the spring concert. There's mathematically on a 6-day cycle, you go through, I think there's only 32 classes. Where prior to that, they met twice a week on a 5-day cycle. So there was a lot more time to become experts. We don't want to have a concert to have a concert, we want to have a concert to showcase the talent. I think that's something that we have to look at when looking at the schedule. At Northeast, we do have club hours that was previously split between the 3 music teachers that we had. Now, our one, John Andrews, has currently, he's already been in 4 different days, after school and before school. I told him, just log whatever hours you're gonna, you have to get paid for. And his effort was so that it could continue on when they get to the high school.
There was something I was surprised that I learned, and that was we have some 8th grade students in the Westside High School marching band. Is
Oh, we
that
have,
right?
I have a number of students that are in
And-
West Street.
And 2, was there 3,
Three.
3?
Three
3
in
intermediate school students in the Scranton High School band, and I was not aware of that, so
West
So-
Scranton has one featured dancer from Northeast as well.
how about that?
8th
So
grader.
what we've got going on now is that because of the timing of the change this year, the principals scheduled the best that they could. Now we can look at some different scheduling options for next year. What Paul has suggested, and of course we'll all get together and talk about it, but possibly 6th grade being the exploratory year, and 7th and 8th grade, if the numbers can work out, specialize in what the children are most interested in. And then again, use the club hours, as Rob said they're doing, and I know Paul is setting that up to enhance the program.
Is there a way to do that for starting in the winter time, or is that something that can't be reset during the school year?
I think
It would be very difficult. You would essentially be changing the entire schedule. Like, it would not just affect the music choice.
But, by a schedule, like,
Every student schedule.
right, but doesn't that always change in middle school? Is that wrong? Like, the second term isn't different than the first term of your classes? No.
No, kids have 6 different.
Some
days.
districts do it that way, where they go the first 30 days
Yeah.
and then they switch to something else.
Not 30, but just the.
Yeah, whatever the number is.
You're the same schedule the entire year?
Yes, our students are on a 6-day related arts cycle the entire year.
So you talked about club classes, what is it?
Hours.
Hours, whatever, so when does that take place?
Either before school or after school.
And could there be like some peer teaching, or what's,
Well,
fellow
that's,
students?
their club hours are listed in.
You know, I mean, like an 8th grader helping the 7th grader with an instrument, like, or, you know what I'm saying?
They
Okay.
don't know how to do that.
Well,
An 8th grade kid help a 7th grade kid,
Or,
and they have music once every blue moon.
I'm not saying this is a replacement, I'm just saying to help with the process, maybe it's a, okay.
So what we are suggesting is that we have the time to develop this, and in our staffing meeting and our presentation for next year's intermediate schedule, that we present to you what the principals feel would work best in their schools. And it might require us coming and saying, we're gonna need to hire staff in order to do it. And if we, hear from PFM saying, their preliminary look is you're not going to be able to hire staff back. So we just need some time to flush it out. But we've got some ideas that we think might work and be more satisfactory than what we're doing this year.
What we'll have to do is right after the first of the year, we're gonna have to do course and see, what the requests are.
Okay, thank you both for being here.
Thank you very much. And I know that Missy was going to share with you some information about literacy. And then I know Ms. Cognetti, you wanted to talk to us further about literacy, and I have a big announcement to make today that I'm very excited about, but I'll wait till after Missy.
Well, I was just gonna, I wasn't really sure what this committee was addressing, so I did reach out and just inform you of some of the things we are doing for literacy. And again, this by no means is everything that our teachers, our schools are doing. But I have a list here of just some of the things that we are doing. I hate to, I don't wanna, I'm just gonna read it for you. Again, standards aligned curriculum using our Pearson, that's K to 5 across the district. We have iTime for all grades K through 5. We have Title I reading services for our K to 2 students in every school. We have Wilson grades K and 1, and we're going to try to purchase grade 2. That's our goal for next year. We have a summer literacy program, United Way. We have our author visits, homework diner in some of our schools, Transforming Readers program, which is United Way again grant that provides kindergarten literacy skills. We have our book buddy programs, parent literacy newsletters, after school program for children with incarcerated parents. That is skills literacy based taught by Keystone College students. Student ambassador program with our 5th grade students working with our younger students. FAST Academy, which is STEAM-based after-school program with a focus on literacy. Study Island in some schools, Read Theory, Starfall, and Spelling City. Title I literacy workshops for parents and families. Our reading specialist working with our grades 3 through 5. Implementation of DEAR, Drop Everything and Read for 10 minutes daily in some of our schools. Big focus in our schools, and I think I did present this to you, is our TDAs. Building level plans, so all of our elementary schools, as part of our Title I initiative, is to have a building level plan which addresses areas of weaknesses on our PSSA scores and DIBEL scores. And again, that's nowhere near everything that we're doing, just a list of some of the things. And I know Dr. Karian has a big announcement for you that she would like to make.
So, it's a big announcement. I was contacted in June by the Philadelphia Arts and Education Partnership. And we worked on a grant to bring in an integrated arts learning program into our district. We've been awarded the grant. The announcement was made on Friday, the official announcement. The grant is in partnership with the Philadelphia Arts and Education Partnership, our school district, NEIU Unit 19, and Westchester University. The grant is for $2.4 million, and it is a 4-year grant. And the model would look something like the model we do with the Salvadori STEM education program. There's like 50 pages of grant that I really want to discuss with everyone, but we would have 4 of our elementary schools that would be able to be part of this grant. And we're going to work with the Institute to try to identify the schools that would benefit the most for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. So I'd like to do a formal presentation on this and have our partners from the Philadelphia Arts and Education Partnership come and present to you. But it's very exciting to think that this is a way to enhance our programs, to provide some professional learning for our teachers, for which the grant would pay $30 an hour for all of the work the teachers are trained to do. Also, the schools who are not involved in the grant, every classroom teacher would receive a $25 gift certificate every year for the 4 years. Because they can't put the program in every school, but for teachers to use as they would see fit in their classroom. And then on top of that, what's built into the grant is $40,000 a year that would come into the district with no strings attached, and it would be $160,000 over 4 years. So there's a lot to this. I, wanted to share the whole big bundle with you, but I would rather do it in a formal presentation. And of course, like for the SFT to hear about it formally and how we would be able to do this. But we've got two models like this currently in our district. One is the Salvadori STEM Education Program, and the other one is the Safe Date Program
With the Women's Resource Center.
with the Women's Resource Center. So pretty exciting news for Scranton today.
Is excellent news. It's wonderful news, and it dovetails really well with, I put on literacy subcommittee on the agenda just as a starter, because this is the type of thing where the Philadelphia Arts and Ed came to you. That's wonderful. Is there something we need to do with literacy potentially, where we need to maybe more proactively look for funding or work with our community partners to try to bring in some things maybe outside of the things that you all can do at the administrative level. This is just a thought to get the ball rolling. Is there something that a committee where we could select a couple of us here to work with administrators, to work with representatives from the SFT, to generate ideas and figure out how to continue to work on literacy in the district, and of course obviously mitigate the loss of some of our resources in the libraries. So it's just an opening for discussion, and we don't have to decide on something tonight, but I thought if we committed a few people to work, and again, I think it should be comprehensive to work with people across the district, not just the board, not just administration.
Well, in this particular grant, they're going to be integrating the arts in math, science, reading, and literacy. So maybe this could serve as a springboard for some ideas that would come up. Now, I believe we have an ELA, elementary, middle, and high committee.
Yes, I have a committee that I work with through the SFT.
And then their work goes through the curriculum council, correct?
Correct.
So that might be a good start as to where to gather people.
Yeah, that would be great. And those committees are already formed.
Okay, so maybe myself as ed chair, maybe Ms. L. Martin as also in the development committee. I don't know who else would maybe want to. So we could start a conversation and see if we could get something together and just get the conversation rolling and see where we can draw resources. I know there are some of the higher ed partners in the area who have approached me just casually, socially. Oh, I would love to do something about literacy in the district, but they don't know how. So maybe if we and we have SEIO as well, bring them into the conversation, see if we can get something going.
Now, Rosemary and I, Katie, we met with Wilkes University, and we discussed some ideas about providing actual degrees to our teachers, where they would be specializing in literacy education. We figured we needed to go through the negotiating table for this because there's a cost involved, and we were thinking that the district could pick up some of the costs through our title money, and the SFT may be able to pick up some costs to support these teachers to go through this program at Wilkes. So there's a lot, that we can talk about. So I would be very excited to have something happen like that.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Wait for me.
It's your world, just like.
I'd like to call to order the October 15th meeting of the Policy Committee.
Katie, do you think we ought to do like the happy dance before we start?
I know, you need to go out and run around the block or jumping jacks.
Thank you, Paul.
Oh, I know, I'm sorry. I don't know.
Mr. Genoweth, are you ready?
Always ready. Do we have the other documents for it's a little further down on the agenda, but for the review of the vacancy policy?
Yes. And the, yes.
So, in your packets, you all received the proposed changes to hiring policies new hiring policies and the professional and administrative hiring policies. The professional, we got about 3/4 of the way through, and the administrative, we did not touch in our subcommittee meeting to prepare these publicly for the review. So I don't know how you'd like me to do this so as not to make it a 3.5-day meeting.
Okay, wait a second now. Where are you starting?
I am
So-
starting on the first agenda item. The paraprofessional hiring policy.
Okay.
Some of the changes were around the,
I believe we brought copies, correct?
we should have those, right?
We have copies.
Those will be in our packets.
I thought. No, I can't find my
Just want to give you an update where we're at for the year.
Okay, I got it.
Is everybody,
Yeah.
everybody's okay with this?
Are there any copies for the public?
Do we have copies of this for the public?
I did not make additional copies, these are still draft.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
those
you
five
were
are
gonna
in
go over-
draft right now, like, Ms. Gilmartin said, we worked on 3 of them. 2 of them, I believe, are new, right?
Yes.
2 are new. The paraprofessional, we have in draft form, and the administrative one, we have not touched yet, and professional employee, we're about halfway done. Those are 2 existing ones that we're redoing. We're redoing 3 of them and 2 new ones, and once we come together and decide we want to submit them to the PSBA, we will put it in that official format on our board docs, once it's approved by the.
So would you like me to read through these? Do you want to look at your copies and ask questions? How best should we do this? Just to give some highlights, the paraprofessional policy, we added the qualification, including but not limited to an associate's degree or child development certificate, and noted that qualifications for each individual position will be defined in job description and posting. There are, Mr. Gentle has a few typos, a comma here, position I think should be singular, but we can review that.
He was waiting for that.
Yes.
He was waiting.
Those are simple.
Overlook. I'll get it next, we'll get it right next time.
Yeah, the third time.
Chairman Martin, when you're reading these things out loud, when you present them to the public, are you going to present the old and the new together so people can comment?
That would be my understanding. Am I correct that this will come in the format that,
The current ones are still on our form, those in draft are in our, I have access to the drafts.
No, I'm
which-
not talking about that.
but we would get this,
Presented publicly, will we see the old and the new together?
I was assuming that we would get this the way we get all of our policies with what's changing crossed out, what's being added in green.
Yeah.
Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yeah.
So,
So when that's
Yes.
available to the public, I'm sure you're not going to waste taxpayer money printing on color, but you're going to
Cross out
eliminate what's
and-
been cut by straight line.
exactly, and underline what,
This is what we're going by, the red and the green.
Right.
Okay, but when you see them, you see the strikeouts
Right.
and the addition.
we did add a line in here from the professional policy that perhaps needs to go everywhere. Attempts to contact school directors or members of the committee on paraprofessional selection panel directly or indirectly prior to their interview may result in their disqualification by panel. That came out of the professional hiring policy and I think is appropriate everywhere. So are there any,
That'll be another one, right?
Yes,
Yes.
I think we did
yes,
have
I
that.
don't think it's in the clerical and the temporary.
I just missed last meeting.
Yes. Yeah, but I think it should be there. And this language is ever so slightly different from the professional hiring one. So that is really the same. professional hiring policy says candidates are advised. So perhaps we want to keep that verbatim here. And what questions do we have on this one?
That was the point that I wanted to raise, so I thought, I don't know that all applicants for these jobs are going to look up our board policy, so will that language appear somewhere in their application documents? Is that, I don't know how the process works, but
So like
just-
the posting?
Yeah, or
Could if
some,
we wanted to.
yeah.
Could the policy be attached
Or
to
just
the application?
Yeah, potentially.
Sure.
I mean, not, yeah, certainly not just this piece of it,
Right.
but, you know, if we want to start making sure that policies are adhered to a little bit better, having that be a part of the.
Yeah, I think
application
either
would be
attaching
useful.
it to the application or pulling out specifics and referencing this would be appropriate.
I think the whole, it'll be the whole policy.
If there's, Bert, is there any reason that that wouldn't be?
Whatever.
Could we attach the policy to the application, to the job posting?
Which one?
Are you talking an online posting or the actual physical paper application? I mean, we could do it either.
Yeah, I
A
mean,
lot of paper, but
Right.
that's not, it's not an issue.
I could make all attachments that are, right now, there are some attachments to these existing, if you go on the existing policies and the hiring process, we could attach anything you want.
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think having it attached to the physical application would be ideal.
Sure.
This is only one, it wouldn't be all of them, just be the one that applies to whichever post.
And then the next two, are there any other questions on that, other than we'll get the old and new version in draft format? The next is the clerical employee hiring process. This is entirely new, very simple. The position is posted, internal employees receive first bidding rights. Applicants must complete an application and submit a letter of interest pertaining to the current posting. Applicants will participate in an oral interview and practical test. The highest scoring applicant will be recommended by the superintendent to the board for hire. The only question I had in looking at this again was, should practical test say pertaining to the posted position?
That's what we had decided.
So that would be, number 4 would read, applicants will participate in an oral interview and practical test pertaining to the posted position. Anybody? Questions, concerns? And the non-certified maintenance staff. Again,
I have a problem with practical. Practical is usually a performance versus a written. I don't know.
okay.
Yeah, this is a practical, this is a clerical practical test.
Oh, consisting of what? How is it administered?
Bill, do you want to talk about
Like
what
they have
we
to
did?
type or something, or?
Yes,
Yeah, they have
well,
to-
what we discussed was actually taking them in, giving them something simple to do on Word.
I got you.
Excel.
Okay, so it's a
typing
performance,
skills.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
So is the wording okay that way?
Yeah, I was just wanting to clarify in my mind what it meant.
Okay.
And I think, Mr. Banner, you were going to look into some vehicles to do that, so perhaps when those are defined, that needs to be another piece in here,
There'd be a
whether it's
rubric
attached to
associated
it.
with it, too. It's a practical, it has to be a rubric, yeah.
We'd have to design one maybe for a clerk position, and maybe a library clerk would have something different, and we're still working on it.
So is the rubric something we'd like to see when this actually comes
How
back?
do you assess the practical?
Would the rubric be related to the test? So
Yeah,
if
well-
Bill found some tests online, they may have a rubric that
If we give it a
goes
practical,
along
how do you
with
assess
it.
it? Just,
Right.
not through observation, you need a rubric.
Right,
But
but
back to front planning. Create what you want to see, and then develop the rubric. You know, all right.
And in a lot of other policies,
Take it over to business class, that'll be the best. There's the rubric for you.
all right.
But in a lot of the policies, that is attached to the policy, so that's something we keep. Okay. And then the next is the non-certified maintenance staff hiring process. Interested parties fill out an application. The following minimum requirements must be met. Clearances, Act 34, Act 114, and Act 151. The TB test. These requirements must be satisfied prior to employment. A list is comprised of the number of allowable temporary maintenance employees as mutually agreed upon in the collective bargaining agreement. The date of application determines the order of hire. As positions become available, temporary employees by date of application are recommended for permanent employment by the superintendent to the board for hire.
So say we have someone that's a temporary maintenance right now. If we ever had someone that's sitting on our temp list that when their number is called, we wouldn't recommend them? Has that happened?
That has not happened.
So if that were to happen, would we?
Well, I believe when they're appointed, they have a 90-day observation period, so that if they are appointed and they are not, it's not working out, that could be addressed at that time.
Okay, so that's built in.
Yes.
But, okay, so I guess my question is, say during the process of them being a temp, and they're just not what we look for in an employee, do we tell them goodbye at that point, or do we wait for the time for them to be recommended, and then we say they're not?
After the 90 days. right?
Well, I think if they're not working as a temp, we would just probably say.
Should we be?
It has not happened.
Because I just know we're in dire straits for it.
Right.
Okay.
We are.
Should we be referencing the 90-day observation period in here?
I don't think we need to do it in here, because at that point, they're hired. They're not a temporary maintenance. That is already in the CBA of the 1201.
Okay. So maybe I was misunderstanding this then, because I thought we were creating this policy for the temporary employees, because at this point, we are only hiring permanent employees from that list.
We hire, yes, we only hire permanent employees from the temp list. Up to this point, we will take anybody on the temp list, because we've never gotten to the max. We can't fill the temp list.
Okay.
So that's why it's pretty, it's rather generic. Once a permanent position becomes available, we would then go to the temp list to take the most senior from the temp list and permanently appoint them. That's when the 90 days will be.
Okay. So
No,
that's.
it's not
I'm
90
sorry.
days as a temp, it's 90 days.
I
as-
was thinking it was 90 days
No,
as a temp.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
it's 90 days after
I
appointment.
see.
Okay.
Okay. And then the professional employee hiring process. There were a few wording changes in here, the capital D throughout. We did, under procedure, no teacher shall be employed who is related to any member of the board as defined in statute unless such teacher receives the affirmative vote of a majority of the full membership, just for clarification, of the board. A director shall be required to abstain from voting when the issue involves immediate family, i.e. parent, child, spouse, brother, sister. I did have a question in looking at that again. It seems somewhere, I think it was in one of the policies we're going to look at later, there's a definition of relative that is more broad than immediate family. So perhaps that's more appropriate here. I don't know.
Okay, are you thinking of what we just did with the tax office when we
Like
added?
brother-in-law, sister-in-law,
Right.
cousin.
Is that the terminology?
I think so, and I will find out where it is defined in this
If you'll let
policy.
us.
Um, And then qualifications of teachers, there was, I think, simply a rewording of the last sentence there. before making application to the Chief of Human Resources. Applicants who do not hold such certification should learn from an approved college or university whether they are qualified to receive a state certificate. The sentence was reworded simply to say applicants with certification pending should contact PDE for approval. We're changing the word by the total score accorded to achieved by the candidate. And then there were some things eliminated under secondary school division and special education division. We've struck out applicants of secondary school teachers shall be made in specific subject areas. Applicants for the elementary school division are permitted to apply for a secondary school subject area if they are certified for secondary school teaching. And we've also struck out the designations mentioned for special education and music indicate that these teachers are available for specialized assignments. We've added in the last sentence in that section, applicants who wish to qualify on more than one subject area list should notify the personnel office to be scheduled to be interviewed in more than one area. For clarification there. And under special education, we've added in, the beginning of this sentence does not change. Applicants certified in special education will be appointed to special education vacancies within the appropriate area of specifications is the added end of that sentence. The rest is struck out. And then the selection process pertaining to scoring, all teacher applicants will be examined by a committee on teacher selection. If an applicant earns a score of 500 or below in an area of certification on the candidate rating sheet, the committee shall disqualify the candidate from that certification. During the interview, the committee will consider the factors listed below. God bless you. And then we simply rearranged the points list to move GPA, which was the most valued, up to the top of the list. Just made sense in my mind, and changed veterans preference to be listed as military or government service. And then I think that was about as far as we got. The only other change was, and I'm not sure that we're correct on this, the examining board we thought should be the Committee on Teacher Selection, but then the sentence goes on to say will be composed of 3 committees on teacher selection. So we might have been wrong on that one. Maybe it is the examining board is composed of those 3 committees on teacher selection.
Could you define government service for me?
I cannot. I think we just tried to broaden that term to, I mean, we did talk through that a little bit about.
Doesn't the DD 214 define that?
Yeah, but you got here, or government service, I mean.
For instance, I was a police officer for 17 years. I think the veteran's preference actually applies a specific extra point number for your service in the Navy, Air Force, Marines, Army, Coast Guard. So, you might page, I believe, work for the government. So like, that's a good point. I think that veteran preference points are in there for a specific reason.
So it's specific.
It is.
Called that.
It's
The
yeah.
DD 214 is what's on the civil services. So it's the
Correct,
same
and that actually adds specific points to the candidate's ranking because they've served. Like, I wouldn't get that for years of law enforcement, even though that would be government, I think that would be government service.
Right, I mean, I think I would strike the government service and just leave military. It's fine, military service. It just could get confusing, or someone could just, for any reason they serve in any department of the government, could say, oh yeah, I'm required to get that 15
It was my place, yeah.
Could we just stick with veterans preference?
That's,
Sure.
yes,
That's always what
that
I've heard
just
been
was
referred
not
to
a
as.
term I was familiar with, so forgive me. It's
Okay. So we're gonna just
Go
Leave
back
it
to
veterans
back.
preference?
Yeah,
That's my.
go back to that.
So is residency in this case different than the residency in the administrative hiring? In the administrative hiring, candidates will receive 1 point for each year of residency with a maximum of 5 points. Is it broken down in any way on this, or?
It does not seem to be, just residency is 85 points. So I was assuming that that meant if you live in the city, you are afforded 85 additional points. If you do not, you don't get those points.
So were you guys able to see what other districts do in terms of residency on both of these?
There are actually not a lot of, ESBA was not able to provide me with a lot of comparable policies to what it seemed as though a lot of what we have is far more fleshed out. Perhaps I wasn't asking for the right thing or didn't pick the right place, but,
Do they have any ideas of what would be standard, or if we did do residency with 8.5% of the overall score? High, seems like a lot to me. I don't know if that's something that.
Well, this is such a, say, compressed area, okay? Teachers' jobs are very good paying jobs, very, So I believe when the 85 points were given, that preference was because, of course, we prefer to, give someone from this area.
does everybody else feel that's an appropriate amount? Do we need to adjust that?
I mean, overall, if you're looking at the GPA, that's the most important. That's 300 points. You can't get away from that. If we don't, you can still have that 85 points, and if you don't have that good GPA, it's not going to mean a hell of a lot.
I don't really see a problem or an issue with the 85 points.
I don't either. I would rather you live in the city.
Yeah.
I want to say,
It's just 85 points compared to 40 points having served in the district as a substitute. It just seems like it's high to me, but y'all disagree?
The original, I do not have a copy of the original. I have a copy of the old policy that was.
What?
The wall.
The way we were interviewed in the olden days? We came into this room, and there were 3 outside educators not from anywhere near here. They sat right up there in those 3 chairs. The board secretary sat in the back. We were questioned by those 3 individuals and ranked. And then we also had our college board exam score, national teachers test. We put that all together, and we were ranked for employment.
could we get a copy of that before we go forward with this? I'd love to see it.
I would have to look at
What's that?
probably board records.
And how long ago was that? Does anybody know?
Those
How long ago?
Rosemary.
Well, we're
Well,
still
it
about
worked- it worked in this district, it worked in this district until it was changed. Because
The modified
the rumor mill said you could get a job in Scranton if you paid for a job in Scranton. So they eliminated that, and then they came up with the plan that we currently use now.
But is it a modified version of the law
It
plan or not?
it is somewhat modified. There's a college professor supposed to serve on a panel, a teacher is supposed to serve on a panel, administrator is supposed to serve on a panel.
Designated superintendent.
And somebody doesn't, right, so then they sit with whatever the subject matter is. So let's say chemistry, Mr. Buckus served on chemistry, Mr. Loftus served on chemistry. If it was mathematics, for example, Mrs. Chiplow served on that panel. And so they would be, those people were highly qualified, so they could ask the new candidate questions about the content. Maybe send them to the board to solve a math problem. Maybe send them to the board to solve whatever. Those kinds of things go on. And then there's always a secretary in the wings keeping track, and Mr. Gaynor should be in the wings keeping track. And then voila, there's produced.
Do you think that changed about 1986, or do you think it changed prior to that?
Probably in the 80s, yes. I can look at our place for the number, I don't know the exact date. But I know that, you know, if Billy says, Mr. Gaines says to me, Rosemary, I need blah, 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 then I give him a list of names and a list of alternates in case somebody is, you know, sick or out of town or whatever. And then, that's my share of the equation, and then you all do your part. With that many people interviewing, it's a little impossible for anybody to play favorites. We try, but it's not easy. It's not easy. And so far, we, I think, produced a pretty highly qualified staff.
And subject area panels would stay the same, obviously we'd keep the chemistry teacher and the science panel. In elementary, we would rotate people so that the scoring would be leveled out. If one panel's a little more generous than another panel, well, that's not gonna go the whole way through because we rotate the panels.
Right.
So I think where we left off with this was that discussion of the panels, and I know we.
Yeah, that was exactly what we thought.
Right, right. And I know we talked a lot about the outside educator, somebody from an institute for higher education, and that being somebody difficult to engage. I don't know if that's true or not, or, you know.
They're not easy to get.
Sometimes they supply their own substitute, they might, for example, let's say the university, the department I worked in, they would supply an adjunct if the professor himself or herself could not. An adjunct professor would attend.
Okay.
That's how they do it.
So, I mean, is that something that we feel is working, is helpful in this process?
Or if it's great.
Yeah, okay. So I don't know if you want to look at these on your own and make other suggestions, if there are other questions that need to come here. I mean, I think we went through this in an effort to make, if there were places where we could simplify language, we did that. You know, if there were places where there were things that didn't seem to be happening, we eliminated that. But this is simply a jumping off point.
So the next time we discuss this will be at the work session at the end of the month?
If the draft can be ready, yeah, absolutely. So if there are other suggestions,
So are you looking for suggestions between now and then, or?
now and then, right now, whatever you want to give them.
I think that was the subcommittee it was a small group, it was easy to
Right.
dissect it, it was easy to pass through it.
Because I think it would be very difficult to talk through each and every line of this. Certainly, maybe if we started about 2 o'clock this afternoon. And then the last one was the administrative hiring process, which we didn't cover, but perhaps it is more appropriate to really be talking through that in this way as well. And I think this is.
We didn't do that.
No. You know, and I think this is where the issue of residency really comes into all of this. It seems to be much more weighted specifically here. So again, I don't know if you want to try to talk through this or if you want to review this and.
Was the answer from PSBA on the residency piece is the same as we're kind of the odd district out in having these types of dates? Yeah, I mean, I would just, my hypothetical would be that let's say there's a couple and the woman has the opportunity to transfer with PNC Bank to Scranton and she's excited and wants the promotion and the husband is a seasoned administrator and they look at this policy and they say, well, 11% of it is going to be determined with whether or not I went to Scranton Tech and whether or not we already live in the city. My worry is that those qualified people don't come into our city because over 10% of the application for his job would be thrown out and he wouldn't probably get the job. So to speak to the depressed area that we live in, we want competitive jobs, we want people to move to the area as well as thrive having grown up in the area. And I worry that this is something that actually hinders that.
You know, I kind of look at people within the district that have spent many years as a teacher, many years as administrators, that, you know, I'd like to give them the best opportunity because they've worked hard here. They've proven themselves. You know, they're entitled for the, up the ladder.
I was looking at it as keeping our educated people in the area.
Exactly.
And I see how you're saying it would be bringing educated people into the area to buy some new homes in the area to build our tax base. I don't know, is there a middle ground?
Middle ground,
Middle
yeah.
ground, like
You know,
touching on both of those?
We should reward the people
It's not,
that.
it wouldn't be like the first time that we did not consider people from outside. So,
But this is baked into the point system, so it's 11% of the points. Somebody's already only got a chance to get 90% of the points if they're applying from outside of the area. So it seems high to me.
And, I mean, maybe the middle ground is bringing it closer to the professional ratio, which you're saying is 8.5%. Thank you for doing the math. So maybe that's, you know, maybe we need to play around with the numbers a little bit and see if we can get there.
Do you have a breakdown of numbers there that I'm missing?
Yes. It's in the last section, in the candidates will receive 1 point for each year of residency in the city of Scranton with a maximum of 5 points. Veterans shall receive 2 points for each year of service up to a maximum of 10 points. Candidates with experience at the level applying for will receive 2 points for each year of experience at that level. Candidates with experience at a different level than they are applying for will receive 1 point per year for experience, maximum of 10 points total.
So at this point, this one is just 5 points, whereas the other one is 85.
These are
No,
points,
there are,
and,
aren't there 2 instances?
yeah, but these are points that are added after the scoring. They're not part of the 100. So those of you that have served on the panels, you know, you interview and you score, and then we go through these the extra scoring points, and that is added to the score then. It's not part of the 100.
That's not clear from this document to me. So it's up, the total, the maximum number of points is 190? Is that correct? It's 100 plus 90?
The principal's 160.
Each panel member could score up to 100. And then we take that total, say it's 350, and then we go through the points from this section that candidate has earned and add that to their score. And I believe the instructions are that the second interview is gross score, not average, I believe. One's average, one isn't.
And the highest and lowest are.
Right.
And the highest,
Are removed.
right, the highest
Right.
score of the panel member and the lowest score of the panel member are thrown out.
So I think this may require further review, a little homework on all of our parts. The only question I did have, and there was something else to say, with train of thought. The only question I did notice in looking at this, the successful candidate must be fully vetted professionally by an outside agency prior to being recommended for hire by board. Do we get a report from that agency? How is that information provided to us?
The only report that we have asked for is a credit report.
So that wouldn't really
That was
be
at a-
fully vetted
No,
then?
that was at a board meeting, that came out from a board discussion.
That we would only ask for a credit report came through? Okay. So do we need to define more clearly, fully vetted then? Sage, did you have something? Okay.
Well, we do check references, we don't hire an agency, but we call the references. We do that.
You need to do background checks. That's almost impossible that you don't do background checks on hires in schools.
They make
Oh, that's-
clearances, no,
Their
the clearances are
their
part of the
clearances are
process.
part of the process.
Like, when you apply, you gotta present your clearances.
They can't, they already have their 3 clearances.
To be continued on that one. Now, 2 board operating guidelines. One, I did speak to PSBA about a meeting cancellation policy, and they said this is something that kind of falls into a black hole, but did suggest this 006 BOG3. The language that you have in front of you is copied and pasted from an IU policy manual. I believe it's Lancaster, and they don't, I questioned why it was in their policy versus their board operating guidelines, and I'm told that they don't generally have board operating guidelines, just policies. So that's why the language is here, and of course, that's why it says executive director, not superintendent. That's why it says to the ongoing conduct of intermediate unit business, not district business. So those are obviously changes that need to be made. And the reference to any member of the executive cabinet, I don't know if that's appropriate here as well. But, you know, it generally regularly scheduled board meetings will only be canceled in the event of inclement weather and or that a quorum cannot be established on the day of the meeting, including through electronic means. The decision to cancel, if necessary, will be made by the superintendent in collaboration with the board president. And then it goes on to authorize the payment of bills, implementation of personnel transactions, and any proposed action deemed to be essential to the ongoing conduct of district business. Any action described above shall not be taken upon a request of any member of the board received by the secretary or any member of the executive cabinet. All actions implemented under this provision shall be subject to ratification and approval by the board at its next meeting. So, you know, and I think you, Mr. Minori, you will take a look at this as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
there's some state statutes on this that I want to take.
Okay.
Ms. Gilmar, just one thing on, we have to be really careful on the numbering sequence with BOGs and policies.
Right.
Meeting cancellation is part of a lot of school districts' policy 006.
Okay.
And I don't want to jump ahead of the game, but
Right.
in Roman numeral 3, technically, PSBA did develop BO 006. They're new. B and C are new on the bottom here. That's in this big packet. And they developed 006 BOG1, 006 BOG2. If we are saying this is going to be 006 BOG3,
yes,
down the road, next month, next year, 2 years from now, PSBA may have a 006 BOG3, then
And then we would have to change this, right?
do we go to 4, or should we just put it like other districts do? Embed it in policy
in the policy
006.
itself.
Okay. I mean,
And
that's
that's
certainly.
the way you send it to me,
Right,
that
that's
it's embedded,
certainly-
it's embedded in the, just
And
policy
That's how I
006.
believe
That's
we should do
certainly
it too.
fine with me. I will have to, I'm sorry, I don't have her email in front of me, but Ms. Masshard did have a reason that she suggested putting that in the BOG as a quote, because I asked her about that. I wrote,
Okay.
I'll look into that, I'm sorry.
But ironically, PSBA did, like I said, under Roman numeral 3, B and C are brand new. So ironically, they developed 1 and 2, so we would have to go to 3, 4, et cetera.
I will get that answered and then we can make a decision on that.
Now, I do have a question. So there, the decision to cancel if necessary will be made by the executive, by the superintendent, right? In collaboration with the board president. Now, the board president calls the meeting, she sets the agenda, or he, whoever it should be. Now, how now do you want the superintendent to
So maybe for our purposes, it should be reversed.
Yes.
I
I
don't
would
think
say
the
because-
superintendent should supersede the board chair.
Yeah,
Right,
that's fine.
because that's why we elect the chair.
Yep.
And she collaborates with you on all the stuff.
Right.
all the-
So we can just reverse that?
Yep.
I believe that would get you where you want to be.
That's fine, thank you.
So the order of events, this came up for us to adopt, and then we reached out to PSBA, they sent us.
Yes. This, I mean, I asked about, we had discussed the meeting cancellation.
Yeah.
We got in touch with PSBA, they said it's kind of a black hole of policy. Heather suggested this VOG, and this is one of the examples she sent. And that, and she sent two, and I thought this language was more thorough than the other, so that's why we did that.
Thank you.
And then, sadly, I do think we need to review our vacancy policy. Obviously, I wish we weren't doing that, but here we find ourselves. There seems to be a little bit of a discrepancy from the last time that we did this. I know we followed the scoring rubric that's on the back of this information. There is a 2014 proposed language for replacing board members that resign. But then there is a 2016 BOG that, the information doesn't really contradict itself. It's just that the policy that is in board docs as an approved policy from December 14, 2016, and modified on January 9, 2017. So perhaps was entered into the system at that time. But this lays out a process for interviewing candidates. All candidates' interviews will be held in an advertised meeting open to the public, which of course we've done. Each candidate will be allowed 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Board members will ask each candidate the same questions. Questions asked of the candidate may include the following, and there is a list of 9 questions. The board will deliberate at an advertised public meeting regarding the selection of a candidate to fill a vacancy. The majority vote of the seated board members will be required to fill a vacancy. In my opinion, having these questions would create more of a dialogue. Certainly, if we each wanted to ask one, we could. If we want to whittle it down a bit and maybe take turns, I know it needs to be consistent for each candidate. I don't see that the scoring rubric is inappropriate. We could certainly, through those questions, be assessing them. Maybe we want to change some of the subject lines a bit to make sure they're lined up with the...
One question I do have, I don't think it's inappropriate. I think it was done in an attempt to make this less political. However, and this isn't to say anything about anybody on this board and anyone's decision that they make is their right, because we're the ones that are picking the next person. You could easily give someone a 0 and give your candidate a 50. Or you could give everyone a 50 and vote no for whoever you want. I was just thinking maybe we could, as soon as we give the numbers for a specific candidate, show them to somebody, or if we're not doing that, let's just go back to I want this one and I don't want that one.
That also maybe brings me to a point I wanted to raise about the throwing out of the lowest and the highest score. If that's would that
I would even
help
take it a
this
step
situation?
further. I would say throw away anything that seems drastically inaccurate. Because
How do we
That would be an outlier.
yeah, I know. And we had a few of them last time, and I just want to avoid that this time.
I don't know how we assess that. I certainly am in favor of scoring everyone fairly. I think I proved that.
Isn't there a new policy to hire professional employees if you don't maintain a certain score, you don't get considered? So would it be too drastic to say if you don't maintain if a score of 20 is not in there, at least it gets thrown out, or would that be going too far?
That's going too far. You gotta remember, these people, and when you run for the school board, there's nothing that states you gotta be Einstein or drive a bus. Okay? Right? Qualify is to be a citizen of Scranton, live in the district, okay? Get enough signatures on your petition to run for the board. Okay, that doesn't mean a replacement has to be an Einstein. Okay? It could be anybody. And again, diversity is a great thing. I think it, you know, wherever the thought comes from.
And at the end of the day, you still have the right to vote yes or no for the candidate. no matter what the score.
Exactly.
And, I mean, that, in my mind, was what made me think the questions might be more effective. It would, you know, maybe you have somebody who's got a great resume, is able to present themselves beautifully, but if you start, you know, I'm not disparaging anyone with wonderful resumes, and are my own, but, you know, maybe if you get a conversation going. I also think it allows us to see how we are going to interact with that person, which I do think is a factor in the decision. So, and this.
Excuse me, in
Go
the
ahead.
past, we were allowed to ask questions, as long as they were, I think it was 3, and as long as you asked the same questions
Right.
to each candidate. That was done, I think. Or I do remember that. Not, and they didn't have to be chosen from here either.
I mean, I think that's the thing we have to decide tonight, because this is the adopted policy. And I don't.
PSBA recommends what they could recommend for any district across the state. And we want to go above and beyond, we can go above and beyond. So we want to get a hybrid of the two. We
Right.
need a hybrid of the two.
I don't think it's a bad idea to strike lowest, highest score state.
I don't think that's a bad idea either. I mean, it might just level the playing field a little bit,
No.
and encourage people to.
Now, due to the fact that we have 30 days, it's a 30-day process, okay? Again, Barbara's not here tonight, I think it would be fair to have some input from her also. It wouldn't be a bad idea that we sit down once again, okay, before, and maybe go over this again, and just to vet it out a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I think this, and maybe that's something we can even do at the work session. Barb should be here if we want to look at these questions. Maybe everybody picks their top 4. If you have an idea for another question, I think we can decide that that's what we want to settle on. Absolutely. This is just.
I'm actually glad you brought this topic to the forefront. I'd also like to see, or at least like to entertain the discussion about maybe certifying a top 4 or top 5 for a period of a certain time. It seems like this happens, unfortunately, in Carol's, tragically in Carol's case, but it does happen in other ways. And I mean, many things could happen in the interim. The person could turn it down. We could still vote yes or no. But you know, we're in mid-October. We have the budget moving. There's still a deficit, and it's going to take us another 30 days. I just think to expedite the process, at least leave a list there, and at least have the opportunity to maybe move faster than we're moving right now.
So you want to tell me 4 questions?
No, I mean maybe 4 top candidates,
Right.
if we get 4, that apply, or 3 or 5, I don't care what the number is, and I don't care about the duration of
And
time.
I will certainly ask PSBA about that. Maybe they have a recommendation, maybe there's a practice that I think that potentially makes a lot of sense.
This is a situation where a director hasn't resigned, but she's in fact passed away. And I know, you know, we'll go by the same procedure, but you don't need to have a meeting now or, you know, to accept a resignation. Okay, so, but that's obvious. But I think the point I'm trying to make is, that's my train of thought. Forgive me.
We went down 3 or 4 candidates was what was last set.
All right. I mean, I think that's a great idea, Paul. Okay. When are we going to start the process with the advertisement? Did we do that yet?
Did you put that out yet, Jen?
No, because I was unsure what to do with the death, while they're on board.
Okay.
Usually it's 30 days after you accept the resignation, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing we would have to accept.
No.
No.
I don't know.
Did the clocks start ticking already?
I believe it has, yes.
So what was
Ken, I mean, could you find out, just to answer that question?
Sure.
If you guys don't mind.
What was the question?
The policy simply says the board has 30 days to fill a vacancy.
Right.
The board will strive to appoint a candidate with a deep commitment to public education and to all students in the district.
30 days probably due to the regular meeting.
Right.
so as they're not missing meeting with an odd number of members on board.
Mr. Duffy, when you said throw out highest and lowest scores, did you mean with each, like, let's say, so, Mr. Hayes applies to be on the school board, and I fill out my rubric for him, and you fill out yours. Is somebody tossing out, mine's the highest and yours is the lowest, and they toss out each of ours for that one candidate?
That's what my idea was.
So now,
You're right.
we're getting right into all these numbers. Is that throw out the highest single score and lowest single score?
So what do
I mean, maybe
we do in the
I've been through
administrative?
Throw out the highest, scratch out the highest and
Of
lowest.
everybody, the groups.
The 5 on the panel.
Yeah, so you might wanna let them know what they do there and see if
It
that's
goes
what they
from
want.
who's the quickest on the draw to giving somebody a score and going from there. So I mean, that's the decision. It still goes to a yes or no vote. So inevitably, it's a yes or no vote. Are we going quickest on the draw? Or are we going, here's a score to start? That's what we decide.
I think it would be really useful to see what other districts do. I mean, I think Mr. McAndrew, you were part of the team that helped draft this rubric, so I think you already did part of that work, but if the current PSBA could weigh in at all, because my other question is, does it have to be us 8 that vote? To Mr. Lesch's point that most directors are elected by the people, like when I applied, I thought it was interesting that it was 8 people electing me. I realized it was an appointment, but in some ways I would think wouldn't a panel of citizens or a mix of board members, citizens,
I think I looked into that, and I think got shot down on it by PSDA. I don't want to put words in their mouths, but I think that, to put words in their mouths.
I mean, even though the score, we still had vote majority for the end.
Right,
So that-
At the end of the day, we still require a board vote.
well, one, as we do move forward, just to start off, it doesn't have to be tonight, but the willingness to collaborate, I think, is a very subjective point. So on the rubric, we can talk more in depth at another time about what the rubric should look like, but that one I felt to be very subjective, and I think right for.
My suggestion coming out of this would be, let's, if everyone is, if we can come to consensus, let's go back to these questions, see if anything jumps out at us, see if anything, if there are any we would like to see, and then define or change the columns in the rubric to fit that. Because I agree with you, willingness to collaborate is, that's maybe gonna be something you feel and indicating your yes or no vote, but not something you wanna split. So is that okay with everybody?
So we're going to reconvene.
You're gonna give me feedback on questions, and then we will review this again at the work session. Because I think we do need to move to advertising this and setting, I think the part about this policy that isn't debatable, when a board vacancy occurs, the district will advertise the vacancy, establish timelines, seek resumes of applicants, and advertise the deadline for submission of applications. So I don't know that we should be waiting until October 29th to move on that.
Well, we can do the advertisement won't change, right? The see resume and letter of interest.
The
are
discussion,
very
about,
broad
the
strokes.
discussion about how we arrived to choosing the
Yeah.
board member that night is the discussion that I think could happen on the 29th, but as long as we start the process
Yeah.
and allow them to show their interest in the vacancy, as long as that starts as soon as possible.
Yeah, is that dictated in the policy when Ms. Orr needs to advertise how long it needs to be open? I don't see anything in here
I don't
that
think
says
so.
anything besides 30 days.
There is a limit, we can do it before, just
So
to
this other
try
one's
it out.
saying 10 days posting.
So it must be
There
open.
is minimums in.
So,
Is that, this one says 10 days?
Yeah,
Okay.
for at least 10 days.
Okay.
so.
Oh, I see.
Has to be posted.
Ms. Orr advertised it tomorrow, for example, to leave it open, or Wednesday, the 17th, and leave it open until October 31st, is that, is that too long, or?
There's 9 questions here. I mean, we could take a second if you want to go through them now and see who wants to, what questions.
Maybe-
Falcon sticks.
Well,
I mean,
so
do you-
to your point, Mr. Martin, process needs to be started.
Right.
And so Virginia needs to post, and it needs to be posted for 10 days. So the post should go up pretty quickly. And then at the work session, you can review all of this, because this is what you will implement when you interview people to serve.
Because the
So you
advertisement,
have some time for
Right.
this part, but the advertisement should go out. And Mr. Menor just said, it looks like you have 23 days left out of the 30.
Right.
So it should go up right away.
so can we do that tomorrow? Get the advertisement up, and it needs to stay up for at least 10 days. Be advertised for 3 days, I think.
3 days at a time.
You know, we may want to insert some of this language into this policy, but I think we can do that as we're going through this process as well.
And Katie, were you talking about attaching the rubric to this?
I would attach the
policy?
rubric to the policy, and also, it seems to have been assumed into the ethos here. I thought there was also an application reference somewhere. Maybe it's in a DO, might be in a DOT. So I think that should be attached to this as well.
So this one here came from PSBA, the 2016.
The 2016, I don't know where that, okay.
So the 2016 copy came from PSBA. It was last modified in 17.
Right.
We've been following the 2014.
Yeah. Because I've been here for 3 days the last time we did this. But in my mind, there is nothing in here that fights with this at
Yeah,
all.
no, they
It
don't.
simply was, I think this was an effort to do the right thing, and this just was a simplified version of that. I think this is good. Okay.
What's our timeline for when the application should be due and when we should actually post the candidates and vote?
Do we need to decide on the day that we vote on this when we put the ad out, when we advertise it? Do we have to
No,
say?
I think you need to do that, no.
We need to say though, applications will be taken until this day.
Definitive date.
Well, then I would say 10 days from, if it goes up tomorrow, let's do it on the 20th.
What's the date of the work session?
The 29th.
So Friday, the 26th.
26 would be 10 full days, so we would know we had Friday, and then it would be Saturday, Sunday anyways, and work session Monday.
Right.
I guess that
I
works.
mean, potentially, could we interview candidates at the work session? If that, yeah, maybe that won't be possible, but potentially.
John said after or before.
Okay.
I didn't know if you heard him, because I'm tough to look.
Yeah.
Do you know at this point in time how many items are on our work session?
We just started that agenda today. Yeah. Mr. Schuster, we don't have it completed yet. And Jenny did send me a draft
Yeah.
late in the day today. I didn't really look at it.
Does it seem to be light or does it seem to be heavy?
What's going to be heavier on that day is, well, not really. We have a budget meeting prior to the work session, and we have a buildings and grounds meeting prior to the work session.
We also, I would just say if the applications would do the 26th, if any of the applicants would like to talk with any of us, I would like there to be an opportunity and time to do that. So I would think that we would want that week open and then vote the following week. And we have to get it done by November 8th. But the 8th, yeah. But
What's the date of the meeting?
The 9th.
November.
No, the
5th.
1st.
Fifth.
5th. Oh, 3 days. I didn't get it right.
We could maybe interview after the work session. It's not-
I'd like them to interview at the work session just because of the fact that they're going to be able to sit through the work session and see what the potential candidates are going to be voting on the 5th. I mean, that makes like the most common
Yeah,
sense.
but you can only interview one at a time in that.
But they could still be present for the work session.
And then what, interview them after?
Yeah.
unless you want to come another night.
He's thinking it takes the vote.
I think it's depending on how many candidates we have.
I was gonna say that too.
And any pick is gonna be a line item. Okay, so, bite the bullet.
Every night we're here for one night.
That's right.
So we have decided that we are advertising this through the 26th. Potentially, we will assess the work session agenda and make that determination, and I certainly think having Barb weigh in on that would be appropriate, but potentially we will interview and appoint on the 29th, and if not, perhaps the next.
Sounds good.
Um,
10, 12 more policies and we're done.
Right.
Actually, I believe Bert was just going to go over the
Yeah.
packet
Yes.
so that you had time to
Here's,
to review.
I
We did
just
it.
passed this out, I passed this out numerous times during the course of the year. PSBA, as you can see, probably will send out during the course of the year 5 to 6 volumes. They'll skip every other month, sometimes do it once every 3 months. We already approved and decided everything through the first 3 volumes in May. August is unordinarily long as far as the board operating guidelines and the policies. Usually it's like 3 to 4 policies that they just revise or implement per volume. But for some reason, between BOGs and policies, there's 10 of them from August. And A and B are 2 board operating guidelines that are new. Everything else is existing that has been revised. Some of them are very, very lengthy, and if we try to analyze each one tonight, we're going to be here until 1 o'clock in the morning. So what I did is and we could take parts of it, none of it, all of it, whatever you'd like. I did all 10 in the language that they want out in red and in green. We could meet and just decide what we want to go with, what we want to keep, and then I could submit them into PSBA and tell them exactly what we want in, what we want out, and they could put it in the form. But that's, and as you can see, volume 4 was August. Volume 5 probably is coming out any day in October, and I'm just hoping it's the traditional 2 or 3 revisions of current existing policies, maybe 1 new one. So that's where we're at right now. What they did, and we're just a little bit behind in this. A is BO 006 BOG 0 is existing, and that's revised. B and C are brand new, BOG 1 and 2 under 006. And they did some revisions to policy 006, 108, 246, 311, 808, 706, and 806. Now here's what I did, if you do have the packet, to make it easy for everybody, this is the summary of all 10. And it should be highlighted for you, generally what they are trying to tell you they want revised or implemented. Very simple, it's a blurb. That's all it is a blurb. So all 10 are, do you have this part, this cover?
Yeah.
And as far as the ARs, we handle that in-house as far as an AR. So I just focused on the BOGs and the policies. Some of them are lengthy. And then what I did here is what they're telling you in a little bit of a blurb. Couple sentences, paragraph is here. Old language red, new language green. So this goes together.
What we currently do is, they would be listed on the work session, and at the meeting, they would come up for first read.
Correct.
At the November 5th meeting,
Correct.
first read. So in between now and the time we post them, you could provide any input you'd like to provide. And then after the work session is only first read. So after the work session, if you have anything you want, other input, you can provide it, and then they go for second read November 5th.
So their first read at the work session, second read November 5th. Okay. always have to?
No.
No?
First read at the legislative session.
The first read should be the board meeting.
Yes, the
And then
legislative
probably
session.
December, give it the stamp of approval.
Oh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we have time for you to give your input.
Okay. One of the, there are just a few things that I did notice here. I know we've discussed this a lot. In 006 meetings, I don't know what page this is, but under minutes, at the top of the next page, all public meetings will be audio and video recorded. All audio and video records will be kept on file for a minimum period of 7 years. Should we be adding language there that says no record shall be destroyed without board notice and approval?
Sure, absolutely.
So that's, Bert, can you make that note, please? June 006.
Wait 1 second, let me get that one.
Okay.
The advertisement, I just want to clarify, because I think I stepped out. Are we, we're going to advertise for 10 days in a row, or a maximum 3 days limits?
10 days, I think, on the website,
website.
3 days advertised in the
I want to
newspaper.
make sure I didn't miss that.
Okay, where are we at now?
Under minutes, in my copy, it is the next page, it's the last point under that section. I believe several months ago, we added all public meetings will be audio and video recorded. All audio and video records will be kept on file for a minimum period of 7 years. And I think we need to add language, no records shall be destroyed without board
This is
notice.
006?
006, yep. Under minutes, it's right above recess reconvene.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's a little bit deep down.
How far back
Okay,
were
all right,
minutes go?
I'm there now. What would you like? What number?
After the last
Forever.
Well, why do we have
line
to
under
destroy it?
minutes, all public meetings will be audio and video recorded. All audio and video records will be kept on file for a minimum period of 7 years. That's what's there now.
Yeah, all public meetings, okay.
I think we need to add a sentence, no record shall be destroyed without board notice and approval.
No
Why do we
record.
have to destroy them at all?
So I was gonna say, maybe keep them for.
The digital world, man, we can save stuff.
Something going back 20, 30 years, this is historic now.
Throw them on the cloud.
No, change it.
Actually,
I mean-
we would probably need to get somebody to help us do that. We don't have the staff to do that. They're all paper copies and everything right now. So we can get someone to digitize them for us. That would not be.
I mean, wouldn't, the way this, if we were to add this language, to me, that could mean that if we did put something on the cloud and we were destroying the paper copy, we would still
You'd need to be notified.
bring that, we would be notified. So I don't think this precludes anything. It allows us to figure out if there is a way to store this forever and ever and ever, which I'm certainly fine with. But
Yeah, we have computer documents, I hate this.
Yeah,
Right,
it's a
right.
huge project. We're happy to do it, but we should get an estimate of what it would cost to have it done. We do not have the staff to do it.
But this would keep any mistakes from happening.
I think something similar happened with these things. Wasn't it at some point in time, they did a revamping of their records? And I think it was looked back later as a mistake.
I do recall something like that happening, and that was a task for a lot of my duty officers. I don't recall specifics of it. But
Something we can look
to
into.
directly to Mark's point, I think the minimum of 7 years and to not be destroyed without prior approval, at least for right now, does
And we'll,
make sure that nothing's tampered with or destroyed, at least by our order.
and then on that same policy, I just, maybe I'm just not understanding this. Under work sessions, the board may meet as a committee of the whole in a public meeting to vote on or to discuss issues. I don't know why that's under a heading called work sessions, because our work sessions not voting meetings.
No, you legislative.
Right, so I don't and maybe that's not a conversation to have right now. I just don't understand that language under work sessions. And I don't think any of the rest of this. In case we didn't throw anything else, I think those were my questions. And the only other point there, in the cover information that PSBA sent, there is, the second to last page, this PSBA policy notification requirements, and what made this jump out at me was that policy 827, conflict of interest, is listed on here. And I know at one point, I think before the end of last school year, we discussed, we revised that to include language of, that it had to be given to and signed off on by people dealing with, by administrators dealing with federal funds. And I know we talked about that being part of the CELT, read that acronym right, retreat. Did that happen? And also, in addition to that, are we keeping track of these policy notifications? And do we as the board need to be aware that that's happening and informed on it?
You've lost me here.
Okay.
I'm trying to first find the conflict.
Page 7.
Page 7.
Begins the PSBA policy notification requirements. And then what made that jump out at me was page 9 lists the 827 policy as one that should be notified, you know, whether it's annually or in a certain period of time. And I remember reviewing that policy several months ago and stipulating that I think the policy language originally made it seem as though everyone in the district should receive a copy of that and sign off on it.
Right.
And in talking with PSBA, we realized that that was only necessary for people dealing with federal funds. And it was my understanding that they were going to receive that and sign off on it at the CELT retreat, and I'm just wondering if that happened.
We did not sign off on it, Bill, at the retreat. The conflict of interest policy, so you've got to bring that, if you would, to CELT tomorrow morning. Policy 827, and we'll have a sign off on that.
Thank you. And then I think broadly, do we need to make sure, are there any other policies here that sort of fall into that category that we need to make sure our administrators or employees are aware of?
Well, you do that, Bill. In the employee handbook, we have specific policies that are posted.
Everything's posted. The ones that the unlawful harassment policy is the one that every principal on opening day makes sure that they sign off on. Now, there are also the policies on, I believe, computer use, and I'm not sure if there's any others.
Except the acceptable use policy.
Right.
I guess to simplify this, what I'm asking is, can we get a breakdown of, yes, this is our procedure, and here's how it happens. Like you're saying, Mr. Gaynor, you know, policy 006, 209, 814, 9002 is part of the employee handbook, and it's signed off by the principals on this, you know, this is the procedure around that. I think if we can just get a breakdown of that to know that all of this information is getting
So
out.
identifying which specific policies our employees need to be aware of.
Right.
Yeah, I think Bill has that list. We know that. We know that several of them that are required are in the employee handbook. We know that our principals go over certain ones during their back-to-school days. And the sign-in sheets, as they sign into those meetings, that's the way we track who has
They keep
been.
them in each building, yes. They make every employee sign off on it.
and then specifically 27 with employees that work with federal funds.
And we decided
that
that
you
was
will do
this
tomorrow
level.
morning. Right,
Because
employees
this
deal.
is the level they deal, we deal with federal funds.
So that will be signed off on.
We will,
8/22.
we will, yes.
You have a meeting tomorrow morning.
You got it.
Yes.
Okay.
Talk about that tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you very much. Do we have anything else?
Someone else changes before we leave.
You and I have a good visit, don't worry. Okay. I think that's all, oh, wait, no, it isn't all I have. The other thing didn't get added to the agenda, but was a discussion of consolidating committees. This is just discussion, this is something Mrs. Dixon and I talked about, we've all touched on it, kind of folding some committees into each other. I did do a bit of a rundown here, so share your thoughts. I can certainly put this in writing and you can review it further. Education, teaching and learning. I wondered if technology could fold into that. Perhaps vocational and special education, although I don't know if they need to stand on their own. This is the current list, so I will put this in writing. I should have done that, I'm sorry. I have just some ideas here to think about. Intergovernmental, could that take PR and development and perhaps be called community relations? Policy legislative, at this point, I couldn't see how that took anything else, nor budget and finance. I thought those two stood on their own. Personnel and labor relations perhaps could be combined. Purchasing, could that take food services and transportation and maybe be called vendor relations? Buildings and grounds, could that take health and safety and athletic and stadium? And then the question is, do special education and vocational education stand on their own, fold into education? We wind up with a list, a couple of different ways I've broken this down, of either 7 or 8 committees. So since the chair of the board doesn't run a committee, 8 would be appropriate, but I thought if we got to 7, perhaps the vice chair of the board would also not have a committee responsibility.
Well, the way you just described it is the way we pretty much have our central admin team broken down.
Okay.
So, the way
So
you-
some of this is sinking in, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the
Good.
way you, I just have, I thought this is excessive, this number of committees.
And I think that I'm getting that feedback from PSBA as well.
The only thing I would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I just had a question, maybe there's something I wasn't hearing. You said that the board president and the chairman or the vice chairman would have no.
The board chairman currently doesn't
Right, she
chair a
sits
committee.
as, as a member on all committees.
Right. So if we settled on, if this list condenses down to 8 committees, then the vice chair would still have a committee responsibility. I'm suggesting if we decided that it folded down to 7 committees, the appropriate person not to have a committee responsibility might be the vice chair. So the chairman and the vice chairman would be free to be, right, exactly, be on any committee, maybe they would decide
You're
to
just
split
saying, limit
those
it to
duties.
one per member instead
That's fine.
of 2 chairs for, like, 2 different ones, just 1 per member. That's, yeah.
I mean, my mind with this would not be to eliminate any of the committee responsibilities and the definitions of them, but to fold them under a smaller number, that then the committee chair might say, if we do have community relations, Paul is going to focus on intergovernmental, Paige is going to focus on development, I'm going to focus on PR, Paul's the chair of the whole committee. It doesn't really change it, it just...
I can see some of those smaller committees that you never at the committee meeting.
Right.
You now get their item managed under that umbrella.
Right.
Committee meetings, some of those areas that we haven't seen in a while.
Right.
I like the idea. The only suggestion that I have is I think although health and safety isn't a often sat, I think I called two health and safety committees the year that I was on. I just think it may be worth discussion that it's important enough to let it stand on its own, just because of how important it could be.
Yeah, we could just put this in an email form or some type of form, we could look at it sometime around the organization when.
Yeah, I mean, that was, my feeling was to let everybody think about this, present a list to really discuss at the work session, and then we could vote on this in November, so we'd be ready to go for reorganization. And that was really what Barb and I had discussed for many months. Okay. I think I'm done. Would someone like to adjourn my policy committee meeting?
All right, I'm just gonna roll into the personnel committee meeting, we're gonna make it quick. The only agenda item I have is solicitor services, and that was due to the question that I thought of when our last meeting for the IU. And just basic, we talked about conflicts of interest with other representation in the legal realm. And I just had one question. If we represented the NEIU in Scranton, and anytime we needed to do a contract with him or with that entity, who would the individual and his firm represent? He drafted a letter, if not all board members have seen it, basically said that he represents, is it 9 districts in the NEIU? And while nothing has happened in the past as far as conflicts are concerned, you can't say that there won't be one in the future. So I felt the need to raise the question, and that's, I mean, if everybody felt okay with his explanation. If you don't have it in front of you, I'm sure we could get a letter home this weekend, the copy, hard copy, to revise or to revisit. And when we have our voting meeting with hopefully all 9 board members, we can move forward.
I was okay with the response.
Yeah. I mean, now that we got that, we got it cleared out of the way, as long as we move forward, that's all I had, so I figured I'd discuss it because it was discussed last meeting.
I think when a person's law firm is dealing with school law in the area, it's difficult to not have some kind of area run into the other area. So I read the entire response. I thought it was adequate, fair, explained.
So if anyone doesn't have anything else, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
Should we first, though, under this committee, discuss the article from the Times yesterday and talk about the process from the meeting on June 29th? I think it would be.
I mean, I hadn't prepared on it. I wish you would have asked me to put it on. I would have, yeah. As long as we don't get into any personal situation.
No,
Yeah. I
just
wanted
the
to make sure.
process piece of it,
If we want to talk about the process, then
Yeah.
by all means.
Yeah, I thought that we should just state for a public record that we, and anyone who wants to chime in, let me know. But when we received a letter from the superintendent's attorney on the 25th, and it was the 28th that we held an executive session. My understanding from that executive session is that we were okay to hold the executive session because the letter involved potential litigation. My concern since then, and a concern raised in yesterday's paper, was that we had the ability to not disclose any private, personal, sensitive information, but a vote to hire an attorney should have been in public. So, Mr. Monroe, I was hoping that you might explain how it was okay that we as a board took action without it being a public vote, and if in fact we should have made it a public vote, how we rectify that, because.
It's very analogous to the situation we run into all the time when an emergency arises. You know, we wouldn't have a public meeting from that point until probably September or around September the 14th. However, analogous to the situation when there's a vacancy in the teaching ranks and we have to replace a teacher, an emergency arises in the school and we have to repair a broken pipe, a broken down heating system, a leaky roof. It has to be done. It's not authorized until the following month. We haven't received a bill for any services. All we did is authorize the attorney to proceed. And I went through a series of emails today, and all of that was provided to the board at their request, what the hourly rate would be, what the scope of services would be. You were all informed of that. And, you know, frankly, I think it's proper. Once the bill comes up, it gets voted on and it gets approved. The same way that a salary gets paid, an employee gets hired, an independent contractor who fixes our roof gets paid. It's not any different than that.
So it bothers me that yesterday, in the article, that the PA News Media Association attorney said that something to the contrary. And so I'm very concerned that we certainly had no intention of violating sunshine, but I'm very concerned that we did.
Well,
So how can we determine?
even if it was, it's cured by a vote. Okay, and, you know, so I mean, it's cured simply by a subsequent vote.
But the subsequent vote that, as it stands now, our subsequent vote is a vote on the bill list, which I know I raised, I think Mr. McAndrew, you also raised that, and others in that room on the 28th, that we would need this to be public for the bill list. But I'm very concerned that the bill list vote isn't enough, and I'm wondering how we can determine whether or not we made a mistake. If we did make a mistake, we need to own up to it and figure out.
I'll look into it. I'll look into it. I haven't, but I will.
Okay, and I was wondering how, so also on Saturday, I read also in the same publication that there's an attorney representing the district for a lawsuit. And I just don't know how that attorney gets hired. Is that through the insurance carrier? Is that someone?
Which law, is it a civil rights lawsuit? Or is it a slip and fall case?
The civil rights lawsuit, I believe it's civil rights.
Well, civil rights lawsuit, they have an approved group of attorneys, and the carrier hires and selects from the approved list or panel that they have. It's my understanding. Same thing with the slip and fall, and they're not the same panels, they're not the same attorneys, so you'll see different attorneys on different cases.
So
And the insurance carrier makes that decision.
Okay, so the insurance carrier decided who would,
They make the assignment.
they made the assignment for that.
I mean, at this point, you know, I generally know who they're gonna assign to what area, so occasionally I'll call or send a complaint over to someone because they have a tendency to use the same people. You know, especially if there's a need to answer a complaint quickly, or to review it for some reason.
Who's our insurance carrier at this time?
AIG is our carrier on civil rights. As far as our liability policy, I'm not certain. I'd have to ask, I'd have to sit down with Mr. Laffey. And every year that's bid by our insurance agent. So I think 2 or 3 years ago, we had a different carrier for civil rights. We've had different carriers for liability over the years, depending on price. And sometimes we find that, you know, price isn't always as important a factor in terms of coverage and things.
I'd like to also make a comment about that article that was in the paper. It was a private document that I had sent to the board. It's a personnel issue that I was looking to hope we could resolve together. I did not send the letter to the Scranton Times Tribune. I didn't think that that letter should have been released. I don't know how it got released, but there has to be a way that each of us can have a conversation about the way we operate with each other. And I believe PSBA will support that, just in that when we had the PSBA training, they told us that that did not have to be in a public meeting. So I'm very concerned that my concerns are brought out that way. And I want to make it perfectly clear, it was not me who sent the letter, because the headline kind of made it sound like I did. I didn't send the letter. I do not think the letter should have been released to the Times Tribune. And I would ask that the board, in working with your attorney, get an answer to that question. because it is concerning to me that we can't have a private conversation about a personnel matter at this level. This is quite shocking that something like that was released, and very disappointing, because the whole purpose was that we're looking to improve the way we work together, rather than to make the situation worse. And I also want to make it perfectly clear that the letter in no way indicated that there was a lawsuit, because there is none. It was a way for me to communicate with the board on some very serious issues with board superintendent relationships. So I would like that on the record, and I would like that, I'd like to have an answer. I deserve an answer on that.
I think we're trying to operate through our board operating guidelines in terms of our communication. As I said, I think we can always do a better job of speaking to each other with care and respect. And I certainly think that when a board member feels as though something should come out, I think this is the forum to do it.
I'd just like to know how a confidential letter gets sent to the newspaper. That's what I'd like to know. And I think the superintendent and this board deserves an answer. That's a breach of...
confidentiality, and I felt it was retaliatory.
Absolutely.
And I'm very disappointed.
I mean, that was a very personal issue. Now it's put in public. I think this board has gone in the wrong direction as far as publicly airing issues that concern personnel, including our superintendent, in the Scranton Times. Things need to be kept confidential. When it concerns employees, or anybody else in this district. And that trust has been violated.
And that's what we're trying to improve.
At this time, I entertain a motion to adjourn the personnel committee. Motion. I'd like to call to order a special meeting on Friday, October 12, 2018. Special meeting to approve the Apex Learning Platform. Do we need to do a pledge of allegiance?
No, just an official roll call.
That's the agenda one. I just had from it. That's for next week. Roll call, please.
Mr. Casey?
Present.
Mrs. Cognetti? Present. Mr. Duffy?
Present.
Mr. Martin? Present. Mr. Lush?
Here.
Mr. McAndrew?
Present.
Mr. Schuster?
Present.
Mrs. Dixon? 7 present, 1 absent.
At this time, I'll have the reading of the notice of the meeting. Scranton School Board of Directors will hold all committee meetings for education, policy, and personnel immediately followed by a special meeting for the specific purpose to vote on APEX in the boardroom of the Administration Building, 425 North Washington Avenue, Scranton, on Monday, October 15th, starting at 6 p.m. prevailing time. At this time, I will allow public comment for the speakers that's science prior to tonight's meetings. The first speaker is Rosemary Bowles.
Thanks, Mr. Casey. Yes, as far as the Federation is concerned, we've made ourselves quite clear. Both committees met regarding this issue. And the committee vote, even including today, was a unanimous rejection of this idea. This is not something that we've ever agreed to change what's brick and mortar into something that's cyber. That's not what the agreement was in the beginning, and it is still not the agreement. So I would encourage you to reject the idea until we can figure what we're going to do tomorrow with an MOU.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Now, you already spoke, but give you your
I'm good. Thank you.
I see that Tina left Mr. Rafferty. I apologize for earlier.
That's all right. A couple bullet points. The examples and demonstrations regarding the grades for the high school students, I think was inadequate. I don't think there's a person in this room that could adequately explain it in detail, except for a few of the parents here. So if this continues, the department should be prepared to have a written explanation that can be given out to parents. This is nothing, it shouldn't be anything more than a simple mathematical equation. It's overcomplicated, it's being confused, and there possibly is data entry that's being done wrong. Not acceptable, plain and simple. The other thing with the middle school, seems to be that the middle school have taken the greatest reduction in the courses offered. Most particular that I find disturbing are the computers classes, even though the people that did explain some of it are gone. I don't see how removing computer classes is being made up in other areas. How can a math, science, or history class adequately teach or instruct the computer skills? In part of your own meeting, you suggested that clerical people are subjected to a test to show the proficiency in their computer abilities. So at what level do our students gain these proficiencies? Is it high school? It's not grade school. In high school, they need to have these proficiencies. It's something that's expected. So middle school is the time that they should be learning it and practicing. I think it has to, it's great that technology is making it out into our schools. It's long overdue, but they also need skills that show uniform instruction and usage so it can foster from there. And lastly, there was one topic brought up because of the instruments and the various arts that have been lost, which is also disappointing. I think any time before, during, or after school when another student can help each other, anything at this point should be fostered. Because education is through anybody that is at a higher learning than somebody else. It doesn't just need to come from a teacher. So if there are students that excel at an instrument, vocal, drama, anything like that, I think we should entertain any ideas whatsoever to make that happen.
I have to comment on that because we had a beautiful example of that at Westside High School with Mrs. Lutz. Mrs. Lutz had a summer program where she had her students who were more skilled in instruments work with the elementary and the intermediate school students, and then they put on a concert including all of those students, and it was absolutely beautiful. I don't know if anybody was there or saw it, but to your point, the instruction for those students came from other students because she was only one person and had one helper. So I appreciate your comment, and I actually saw it in working in this district. Unfortunately, Mrs. Lutz is gone, but the concept is still real, and it could happen.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move towards the resolution part of our agenda. Director Carnegie.
To the members of the Board of Directors of the City of Scranton, it is the recommendation of the Superintendent and the Education Committee that the following is approved. Whereas the Scranton School District strives to provide students with an exemplary and contemporary education experience, and whereas the Scranton School District offers diversity in world language selection and has conducted an exhaustive search for a German certified teacher, therefore be it resolved that the Board of Directors supports the implementation and adoption of the contract for German 1 and German 2 on the Apex Learning Platform for the 2018-19 school year. However, this resolution will now go into effect if the SSD and SFT sign an MOU to allow an acceptable alternative. Respectfully submitted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a question.
Do we need a friendly amendment to include the word only after school year? I know that was one of the, I know we have dealt with this, but.
And it was also a suggestion by the committee.
Right, does that sort of give us double protection here?
So you're asking for a friendly amendment?
Yes.
Yeah. Second.
I have a question. Roll call?
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mrs. Dixon? I'm sorry. 7 affirmative.
Get back to the original.
So the final paragraph now reads, therefore be it resolved, the Board of Directors supports the implementation and adoption of the contract for German 1 and 2 on the Apex Learning Platform for only the 2018-19 school year. However, this resolution will not go into effect if the SSD and SFT sign an MOU to allow an acceptable alternative.
Any other question, anything further? Roll call?
Mrs. Cognetti?
Yes.
Mr. Duffy?
Yes.
Ms. Gilmartin?
Yes.
Mr. Lush?
Yes.
Mr. McAndrew?
Yes.
Mr. Schuster?
Yes.
Mr. Casey?
Yes.
7 affirmative.
Okay, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Rose